This time to the edge. Mitchell. One-handed catch for a touchdown. And the highlight reel continues.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Jawar Jordan didn't field it immediately, but then finds a hole. Oh, my goodness. Jawar Jordan gets around the edge past Colin Smith. And from his own 2-yard line, he goes 98 yards.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Traveler steps up. Another downfield shot. It's caught. Josh Vann, touchdown, South Carolina. 2 possessions, 2 scores. 60 yards.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Back to the air goes Rodgers. Thomas. Goodbye.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
A gaping yawning hole for Miller, and he's off. Kendra Day. That's what it is. Touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go today on this Thursday afternoon, January the 12th, 365 Sports. Here on the set to my left, Paul Catalina. To my right, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak, and we are full throttle today until 6 o'clock. Also behind the scenes, making us sound and look good, or at least as good as they can, is Garrett Ross, Jacob Wilson, Jack McKenzie, and Emery Winter. So what's going on at Oklahoma State? What is happening in Stillwater? We will hear from 2 different analysts today. One, Barry Trammell, who writes for the Oklahoman, covers both OU and Oklahoma State, and also Robert Allen, sideline reporter for Oklahoma State, at different times during the show today. We have discussed it. Spencer Sanders, among others, Dominic Richardson at Baylor, and then today, Paul Catalina, Derek Mason, their defensive coordinator, who was there for a year replacing Alex Grinch, who went to, not Alex Grinch, Jim Knowles, who went to Ohio State. He puts up this, that it's time for him to take a break.
Yeah, and I don't know if both of the situations that we're kind of diving into are totally related. Like, it would not surprise me to see, Derek Mason, who after, getting fired at Vanderbilt, being at Auburn, and then at Oklahoma State, like maybe just, felt the need to move on and take some time to himself. But I don't think it's beyond the realm to theorize that all these things are connected with how many starters they've lost in the portal, how many total players they've lost in the portal. That would be guys who maybe future starters just hadn't won those jobs yet after some graduation. The fact that, it just seems strange what's going on there. And look, I've been of the belief, for a while that, there are some coaches like Mike Gundy who is old fashioned in a lot of different ways. And I'm kind of putting it mildly there, but that the new era of college football may not just be for him. So he's probably not dealing with it as, the same way that everybody else is. And eventually he's just going to do something else or be somewhere else where maybe it's not as big of a deal with all the other things that have been added to college football, because he's made – how much money has Mike Gundy made? I mean, it's not like he you would hope that Mike Gundy doesn't have to like work year to year to keep refilling the coffers of his bank account, that he's not spending that much money. Like, you would think he didn't have to work if he didn't want to for the rest of his life as much as he's made at Oklahoma State. So, but maybe step away.
But at the same time, Craig, and Paul, is that it seemed like he was more at peace at about this time last year, despite the loss, or even before the loss to Baylor in the Big 12 championship. It seemed like he was at peace. And even what we were told was the perfect spine with the president, the AD, and Mike Gundy, like we've talked about with Baylor in that level or those levels. And yet here we are. I mean, Craig, your thoughts? And again, Derek Mason, it might be him just wanting to step away for a while.
Yeah, it might be. I mean, it was a tough year. He's been coaching for like 30 consecutive seasons. So, I mean, maybe he just wants a break. Like, I think that could very well be part of it. I know that it's just in our DNA these days to just automatically jump to the most negative outcome possible. So, like, Derek Mason must hate Mike Gundy, the ship's sinking and all of that. I mean, that still could be true, but I will give Derek Mason the benefit of the doubt that he's a grown man who can make his own decisions. And if he wants to take a break after 30 years of coaching, then I respect that. Having said that, if he had done this at like any other school in America right now, I don't think anybody would really be blinking twice about it. But the fact that he's doing it at a place who's lost, close to 20 transfers, that's something that does make you raise your eyebrows a little bit, because it's not quite explainable right now of what exactly is going on. Is it true that Spencer Sanders wanted to come back and Mike Gundy basically told him no? Because that's the chatter out there, and Spencer Sanders is still sitting out there in the transfer portal, and we have no idea why. We have no idea if he's got some injury. We have no idea if just there's not interest, which is kind of surprising to me, because I'm sorry, I don't think that I see an entire nation's worth of quarterbacks that are better than Spencer Sanders, So that's bizarre to me. So I feel like there has to be some injury related, like that's something that I haven't quite gotten a grasp of, but the number of guys that have entered the portal, to be fair, they just picked up Alan Bowman a couple of days ago. So you add him along with about 10 other guys that they've added in the transfer portal because they're offsetting whatever the total number is at this point. That's one thing. Like, I don't know if there's a chart out there for these college websites, 247 or any of the other ones is there just like a list of like in and out? Like, you got 11 incoming, 8 outgoing. I think that would be helpful rather than
on three does that.
Do they have that? Okay, good.
I think they have kind of that weighted, that whatever that is. Yeah.
I just think it would be, rather than like combing through and going like, okay, he's in, he's out, he's in. It would just be nice to see just the whole number. So if that's out there, that's awesome. That's smart.
It's like a plus or minus turnover.
Yeah. So like if that's out there, that's great. So I don't know what the total is there for Oklahoma State at this point. I know there's more outgoing than there is incoming, and I know there's probably more to come. But I'm looking forward to talking to both those guys to try to get a better grasp of especially from Robert's point of view, exactly what's going on in Stillwater, because from the outside looking in, you do wonder, like I said yesterday, is this all setting up to be one of the great comebacks in college football, or I should say bounce back seasons? Even though they finished with 7 wins last year, like they made a bowl game. So like their terrible season, or whatever it feels like, was down from the year prior, much like Baylor's was. But, it's not as bad as it could have been. It wasn't like they only won a couple of games. So there's reason to believe you just retool this roster in this day and age, and the flips happen pretty quickly. And maybe that's what Mike Gundy's got up his sleeve. But without being able to see that for quite a while, and seeing some of the familiar names, the John Paul Richardson, Spencer Sanders, Dominic Richardson, those types of guys entering the portal, something's up. And I'm curious to know what it is.
Well, we're going to try to get it from a couple of different angles. Barry Trammell at 3:30, Robert Allen today just after 5. Brandon Marcello, and I know you guys Brandon Marcello put up earlier today, this is the Oklahoma State attrition. 19 players in the portal. Again, that doesn't show how many they've gotten back because they have made up ground on some of that. Now the defensive coordinator has walked away. That includes the starting quarterback, starting running back, starting cornerback, safety, their leading tackler, second leading receiver, second leading pass catcher. And oh, by the way, it's January 12th, and there might be maybe more.
Yeah, so, because it's about to close for a little bit until spring. So you might have the people who have kind of held out until they see what the situation is going to be and then bail. In On3's transfer portal team rankings right now, Oklahoma State is 56th. By the way, Alabama is 57th because they've only got one transfer in and 16 out. But officially 11 transfers in for Oklahoma State and officially 16 transfers out. So because some of these, I think they do these when On3's putting them in when like paperwork's filed, guys officially gone, all those things. But right now it's 19. So if you even add to that.
So is 56, is that a good number, or is that's okay?
I would
think not.
It's based on the teams in front of and like immediately behind them outside. Alabama, it doesn't matter because they're Alabama, like that's kind of what they do. But the teams around them are Vanderbilt, Florida, West Virginia. Those are the teams right in front of them. So yeah, it's not good. It's not good. It's not a good thing. What's going on right now for them, because they don't also, like, outside of these rankings. We saw what happened when their roster was, ripped to the bone injury-wise this year. That was not a team that is exactly, overflowing with depth as far as like what they can see of who's going to take these spots. It was a weird situation that they had so many injuries, but man, I would be nerve-wracked if I was an Oklahoma State fan.
Well, there's something going on. Barry Trammell will give us his opinion. We'll also hear from Robert Allen, get his opinion, and maybe they're the same, or maybe they're close to the same, or maybe they're differing, and I'm good with that too.
And at one point, halfway through the season, they were 6-1, and they had lost by 3 in Fort Worth to TCU, and that was their only loss. And then after that, they lost 4 of their last 5, not including the bowl game, which they then went and lost to Luke Fickell's Wisconsin. So they dropped 5 of their last 6 to finish where they did. So started off 5-0, lost their first game to TCU, were 5-1, beat Texas 6-1, and then lost 48-0 to Kansas State. That's when the injuries really started to get off the rails. Lost by 21 to Kansas. Turned around and beat Iowa State by 6 in an ugly game. Lost by 15 to Oklahoma. Lost by 5 to West Virginia, and then lost by a touchdown to Wisconsin. So
yeah,
it was just a weird year, a totally weird year where the first half and the second half were complete opposites. And, obviously injuries played a huge part in that. And certainly the toughening of the schedule, too, because they weren't playing Arkansas Pine Bluff. And,
who else was their non-conference schedule?
Central Michigan and Arizona State.
Okay. So their season, did it not, Craig, then almost mirror in a way Baylor's? Baylor didn't start 6-1 by any means, but it was at least they put themselves in position and then just slip right down the hill.
Yeah, I mean, they were halfway through the season still in the race, I guess, and then very quickly exited after 4 of those last 5 losses in conference play, and then obviously just cherry on top with the bowl game loss to Wisconsin.
All right, from John Boss in the chat room, 365 Sports, good conversation from the 3 of you. Thank you very much. We, again, will hear from different angles. That's just part of today's show. The Big Ten is looking for a new commissioner. What a rise for Kevin Warren. He was always someone that you kind of heard about, although there was times when he first was hired as the commissioner of the Big Ten where there were thoughts and confusion, and maybe he was over his head, or maybe it was just a lot of whatever. He is now the president and CEO of the Bears. He will be known for no matter what, well, depending on what he does with the Bears, he will always be known for what was the landmark television deal that he cut with the Big Ten. That's what right now is part of his Wikipedia page. That's part of the biggest part of his Wikipedia page.
I don't know. I'll forever remember him for that airtight alliance that they created.
He is the subject of the top 5 today. And maybe some good and some bad. I'll just tease it that way. But WDB Sports Entertainment Network on the chat room. First comment out of the box. On the entire chat today. Thank God Kevin is gone. He ruined college football. Here's the thing. I hate to break it to you, WDB. Nothing that he did is ever going to go away. The thing that's kind of amazing about Kevin Warren is, here's a guy who had a job for essentially one presidential term, came in, changed everything beyond what we'd ever known. And he was one of several, but he was the largest agent of change in that he did it in the way that benefited his position the most. And now he's leaving, and it's not like you're going to go back. The next president's going to come in and be like, well, I'm going to repeal those tax hikes. No, they're there. It's staying that way. Nothing's ever going to change. He has changed college football forever.
And we don't know whether it's for the bad or the good. We don't know that. At least initially the reaction might be a little bit of both, and that, of course, time will play out.
Well, we do know that, yes, it is changed forever as a result of some of his actions in particular, but we also know that he was smart enough to see that it was inevitable and that if you didn't change, you were going to die and you were going to open yourself up to massive lawsuits and all sorts of other things. And so he was just the guy who said, this is happening. You might as well move forward with it and, pushed forward with it. And, I do think that does sort of feel like he was the new guy that showed up to the party, threw a grenade in, and then took off running, or a smoke bomb or something, and then, laughed across the street because, he was here for what felt like but a brief time, but it was a chaotic time. And so, he's an NFL guy. That's what he was before he joined the Big Ten. And I saw that report drop like a couple weeks ago that his name started getting mentioned for it. I was like, that's interesting because, his stint was short, but it was so impactful for better or worse. And, WBD's point, like, I get where he or she's coming from because, college football is totally different. Like, the only thing, though, that takes some of the sizzle out of that is that was bound to happen. Mm-hmm. Like, it was going to happen. So if it wasn't going to be him, it was going to be somebody else eventually. And he was just the one that pushed forward and probably talked the loudest about it. Yep. And stuck his chest out and said, like, we're going to hold everybody like puppets basically on strings in this conference realignment dance and our network TV deal. And he landed them a landmark one, and he got USC and UCLA or helped, get that all done, and then, basically played hostage with a bunch of other schools all across the country and left them in limbo all across the Pac-12 and, in the Big 12 then as an extension as well. And, now it's a much different landscape with Kevin Warren not involved because you kind of wondered if it was just going to be he and Sankey, just those two figureheads for the, the next decade or two with their AFC, NFC almost style concept. But I'm very curious now what direction the Big Ten goes. And like I said, a short stint, not one that everybody's going to love because it did cause such massive change to what we knew, but impactful to be sure. Yeah, and give the guy a little bit also credit of foreseeing that after the decisions he made in 2020 during COVID, where he essentially was costing his teams a bunch of money, he found out a way to make it back on the back end, didn't he?
Let me tell you something. Yeah.
Figuring that out and having that, I do think that was 2020 is going to be a telling year in that. I remember we had a conversation during that up in my house with Mac Rhodes, and I asked him, I said, should college athletic, powers that be spending this time where you're not scheduling games, you're not, running an athletic department how you normally would, to try to look at the issues that you have underlying and talk about them and find a way forward. And he said, shame on anybody who's not, and shame on us as a profession if we don't. And I do think there were people like Mac Rhodes, like Kevin Warren, that were all around this that were trying to do that. But I do think that there was half of the athletic department world that was just like, well, when this is over, we'll go back to the way it was.
Yeah.
Then when it was over and part of the world had said, all right, we've got to move this in a different direction, they're like, whoa.
Yeah. No,
when did this come up?
One of the reasons why this has been such a cluster blank has been the fact that too many people just wanted to leave it as it was, including the NCAA. One other transfer note, at least for now, locally. Former Conley High School running back Javion Sunday, who was a beast in high school, went to the University of Washington, has just not been able to get many carries there. Of course, they had their dude at running back this past season. He has entered the transfer portal. Big back, record-breaking high school-type career. The couple of teams that I have just been given at least a whisper or two, doesn't mean these are the leaders in the pack, but California might be one, Cal. And another one might be Auburn. And I don't know all the connections there, although Cal would know who he is because Washington is a part of the Pac-12. You may say, what about Baylor? He's from Waco. Well, Baylor just had the Dominic Richardson thing about a month ago, and so most likely that running back room is filled, although because late last night it became official as we were wrapping up the show with Juice Johnson headed to Texas Tech, then you never know about what the attrition might be in the running back room as far as the position group going forward.
Yeah, I don't think that affects Dominic Richardson because I think he's already signed, and I don't know what that would
No,
be.
Dominic said.
Yeah,
no.
like so. But that was, I know, one of the first thoughts. Like I think Garrett mentioned that, and I had thought that too. Of like, wow, Dominic Richardson just got to Waco, and I'm sure Juice played a big role in that. So, yeah, it's entirely possible that there could be some attrition, and I don't know, how interested Juice would be in, whoever that might be. I don't even know who that would be because, quite frankly, like. The question is not even who they might lose that would just have a choice to do it. Really, it's that would matter right now for next season. It's more like, does Squirrel Williams come back to try to play? Like that's the question for me in the running back room. Like, is Jordan Jenkins ever going to see the field? Is he healthy? Is Tay McWilliams ever going to play again after his concussions? I'm not so much worried about guys not getting playing time. I'm worried about guys not being healthy enough to get playing time. So, that's the big concern as far as that goes. But yeah.
All right. Well, Brandon Marcello.
But JV on Sunday, he was a great young man when he was around here.
Yep.
He just, he'd never seemed to crack the code in Washington, in Seattle, and wish him the best. That's interesting. He might, stay out there on the West Coast in the Pac-12. But yeah, I monitored and I paid attention, but he just never seemed to get going out there for whatever reasons. And, Will Nixon, we know him. He's also up there. So we'll still have a Huskies connection in a roundabout way. But
Yeah.
Sunday had 396 yards rushing in 3 years in high school and also 71 touchdowns. Highly recruited, ended up playing at Washington.
And I would just note on him, he initially went to Washington thinking Chris Peterson was going to be the coach.
Yeah.
Then Jimmy Lake was the coach, and that ended very badly for Jimmy Lake at Washington. And it's Kalen DeBoer. So if you're in your first 3 years and you thought you were going to play for another coach, and then the next thing happens and it's bad for everyone involved in that athletic department with Jimmy Lake, and then you move on to a new coach, that's kind of how college football works now.
Yep. No, I had 3 coaches in 3 years, and then you wonder sometimes, sometimes you need to go somewhere where you're perhaps a better fit or where you went, it didn't work out. One other note from Brandon Marcello. If you watch the championship broadcast on Monday night between Georgia and TCU, at the end of the game, they're filling. They're trying to do anything possible because the game was over in the early second quarter. And there was discussion about Deion and Colorado, and then Kirk Herbstreit threw out a little nugget that they were not going to start against TCU their season in 2023, that they had worked out an agreement to open up their year against Arizona State. That was with Kirk Herbstreit saying that Deion had specifically personally told him that, right? Now, Brandon Marcello said, interesting development. The plan for a week 0, which I hate that term, between Colorado and Arizona State has been nixed after Deion leaked the information to Kirk Herbstreit on ESPN. So now it does appear as if Colorado might be playing. I don't know why leaking it would matter, but not sure. Maybe that goes back and forth, but that's that. All right, now, last night, college basketball. Baylor got their first conference win. My God, this is Stephen Vaughn. They're in Morgantown. Stephen Vaughn, who's like original day one viewer, listened to us when we were on the place before. He was there at the game. I said, you have one job. This is during warm-ups. You have one job, and that job is to get a win for Baylor. And he did it. They do win. It wasn't easy. Keontae George was fantastic. Jalen Bridges, playing in front of a crowd that was basically telling him to go blank himself, had a double-double.
Yeah, no,
those are the direct quote.
They were. And so Baylor gets the win. They're first in the Big 12. And on top of that, last year TCU came way back to beat Texas in a game last season. Of course, TCU made a nice run in the tournament. We know that Texas was good, but they didn't go very deep. Neither did Baylor, actually, with North Carolina lost in round 2. Then last night, at one point, the game between TCU and Texas, I think was like, was it 40-22 or something like that? And then at halftime, I believe TCU was up maybe by 12 or so. Texas came back winning 79-75 to dig themselves out of what was down by 22 or whatever it was at one point. So a nice win for them as the Horns continue to move on since the loss and gone of Chris Beard. So great win for Texas at home against the top 20 team in TCU.
Yeah, Baylor's game against West Virginia last night, following up Kansas's game against Oklahoma the night before.
I want to
the Big 12 sent out a memo a little over a week ago that the refs should call more fouls, and that's clearly going on right now. Hopefully that they figure out that blowing the whistle for what I went back and rewound and kind of found some stuff.
Are
this
you
morning.
psychotic or something?
Well, I mean,
What?
Because there were times I'm like, I don't know how many possessions straight. I think the longest back and forth in the Baylor-West Virginia game that there was not a foul called was just a back-to-back possession. So Baylor down the floor, West Virginia back down the floor, and then when Baylor comes back down the floor, there's a foul called there. And then there, foul. There were so many fouls called. That is not what people want to watch.
I agree.
I get that there is, and it seems to me in the Big 12, because Walt Anderson was over football for a long time, and what's going on in basketball right now is they have guys who really love the rule book, but have not figured out a way to apply it that makes it watchable and flows game-wise. But the broadcasters are having a problem doing the game last night because you can never get a flow when you're broadcasting. The coaches, what are you supposed to call if you're West Virginia and Baylor in that last stretch of a game when everybody's got 4 fouls and you're trying to play defense and try not to let the other team score, and you can't even get close?
You also do have to put blame as well on the players.
Yeah.
They have to react to it like a strike zone in baseball. You have to be able to react to it. But last night, after Kansas in their game with, who was it? Who did they beat the other day? Oklahoma had 62 free throws. Last night, there were 69 free throws. And so for you watching, those in attendance, coaching staff, players, broadcasters, it was kind of hard to kind of keep track. But at one point that game, Texas was way down. They came back to win, and Baylor gets their first conference win. So Saturday it sets up like this. West Virginia at Oklahoma. Kansas State at TCU in a showdown of top 25 teams, top 20 teams. Iowa State plays at Kansas, 2 red-hot teams. Oklahoma State plays at the Farrell Center Saturday at 5, and Texas Tech plays at number 10 Texas down in Austin in a game that won't have nearly the emotion it had a year ago when Chris Beard was leading the University of Texas basketball program.
Yeah, Texas doesn't have their coach. They'd kind of like to have him, if not for, the whole reason why he's not the coach anymore. And Texas Tech was happy to have theirs, and now they don't really seem to want him anymore. So it's just a totally different ball game than it was a year ago.
The Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award was awarded last night, and TCU quarterback Max Duggan was the winner. We had Max, Bijan Robinson, and also yesterday Frank Harris on a show. We appreciated all of them for being available to us, but Max Duggan wins the Tyler Rose Award, the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award by from 47 different voters nationally from throughout the country and also in the state of Texas.
And from my understanding, he won it pretty comfortably. And not a surprise. He was a Heisman finalist. It was just a little over a week ago, he was beating Michigan in a semifinal game to go to the national title. I guess freshest in our minds, of course, is what happened Monday night. But, he did play in an extra game, and he was a part of a perfect regular season team. So not a great argument against him, even though for everybody TCU related, it ended on the sourest of notes. But, he was deserving. Bijan, certainly would have been deserving. Frank Harris would have been deserving. Deuce Vaughn would have been deserving. But some great representation. And, Max was very delighted and cordial, and everybody had a great time. So that was good.
Thank you, Craig. 1979 Heisman Trophy winner Charles White passed away at a young age, 64. He died from cancer. Charles White, one of many great names in running back lore at the University of Southern Cal. Coming up next, Barry Trammell, Oklahoman. What's going on in Oklahoma as far as Stillwater with Oklahoma State and his thoughts about year 2 of Brent Venables? And this is, we appreciate you being here at 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on, not only for a new car, but if you're looking to buy pre-owned as well, or if you're looking to just get your car fixed up. You got into a wreck or you just need something that needs repair, Richard Carr is the place that can get that done for you with great customer service. Again, they are the people that you can count on. So check them out right now over off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit. They have got as much inventory on the lot right now as they have had in a couple of years. And so that's why they're so excited to get people over to the dealership because of supply chain issues. It has been a little bit difficult for dealerships over the last couple of years to stay as stocked up as they wanted to keep cars on the lot. But right now, dozens of Sierra trucks for qualified buyers, 2.9% financing on 2023 GMC Sierras. Qualified buyers can also get 3.9% financing on GMC Terrain SUVs or just the entire lineup of Buick SUVs in stock. Over 150 vehicles in total on the lot and ready to drive home today. And if the Sierra, tickles your fancy, it's got best-in-class towing, unsurpassed strength, premium comfort for a limited time, 2.9% financing, no payments for 90 days. If you're not looking to buy new, they also have 80 quality pre-owned cars and trucks, although that number could be going up and down depending on the cars rolling in and the cars rolling off the lot. But around 80 quality pre-owned vehicles under $20,000, many of them. So if you're looking for a bargain, you're also looking for a great vehicle, and you're looking to buy pre-owned, they have a bunch of options for you there. Affordable, thoroughly inspected, ready to finance for almost any credit rating. Richard Carr has quality vehicles ready to drive today. So check out the dealership, in business for over 23 years. It's built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs around the area. Run by proud Central Texans. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links. Fresh chicken chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas. And always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Barry Trammell, Oklahoman, joins us on 365 Sports, covering, well, the state of Oklahoma, OU, and Oklahoma State with Craig and Paul. I'm David Smoak. Barry, thanks for your time. I want to start with, if you don't mind, Oklahoma State, 19 transfers today. We know the story about Derek Mason. What's going on in Stillwater right now?
Well, it's a lot of upheaval, a lot of drama, a lot of dissatisfaction. Don't know the root of it necessarily, but it's got to be alarming for a guy that prides himself on building a good culture, which is what Mike Gundy has always done. It's very disconcerting because it's not, it's one thing. Almost every team loses a batch of players in the portal, but you rarely lose 7-8 starters to the portal, which is what Oklahoma State has done. So, everybody's going to lose seniors, going to lose guys going to the pros early, that kind of thing. That's just sort of the natural progression. But when you lose guys who just want to go someplace else, that's alarming. So Cowboys are sort of staggering right now and trying to find their footing, I would say.
Barry, Mike Gundy has always seemed to me from the outside like a guy who, in the modern era of college football, wouldn't really like the way that it's gone, because he is someone who has done a very good job, like you said, of building the culture of Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. And there's a lot of outside factors that are completely out of his control that, would really hurt that. Do you think he would ever just be over it and leave?
Yeah, I think there's a point in time. I don't think he wants to, but you're sort of right in that I don't know that the modern structure of college football, with portal, with the NIL, with all those things, with players having quite a bit of power, that's really not his style. He's not into that. Now, he's got two options. He's got three options. He can get over that dislike and make the best of it, or he can ignore it and, the results will take care of themselves. Or he could just say, you know what, I don't want to do this. And you know what, he wouldn't be the worst coach or the best coach that's made that decision. We've seen that in college basketball. Jay Wright is as classy as of a guy as there is, has built as good of a program as there is in college basketball. And he walked away last year. And, it's probably a number of reasons, but I think one of them is, I just don't really want to coach in this kind of culture. So I think that's what's going on. Gundy's going to have some decisions to make for himself.
Barry, how surprising was the Derek Mason announcement?
It wasn't terribly surprising. The only surprise was that he was the first coach to be let go or to move down the road. Because, we knew there was some friction going on with the defense. The defense was actually halfway good, considering what they lost from that great defense of 21. The OSU defense sort of held up its end of the bargain. It was the OSU offense that bottomed out. You guys there at Baylor saw a pretty good OSU team there early October. Cowboys were pretty good at that point. But by the end of the season, the offense was terrible, probably the second worst in the Big 12. And you can't win in Stillwater with that bad of an offense. So we expected big changes on the offensive front, and instead we see it first on the defensive side.
Barry, in the last couple of years, you saw Oklahoma State, Baylor play for the Big 12 title. This year, TCU and Kansas State. I know it didn't end well for TCU, but they did have the win against Michigan. It didn't end well for K-State against Alabama, but they had a win against TCU. Your thoughts about the conference? It appears, don't you think, that there's all the talk and chatter that there's 1 year left with Texas OU and that everyone moves on?
Yeah, it looks that way. We've headed for we're not headed for, we're in a period of incredible parity. In the last 3 seasons, we've had 6 schools make the Big 12 title game. We've had 3 different schools win the Big 12 title game. We've had 3 different schools win the Big 12 regular season. And we've had, let's count them up, TCU, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Oklahoma, Baylor, Kansas. In the last 3 years, we've had 6 schools either finish first in the standings or win the Big 12 title game. That's remarkable parity. Mm-hmm. So it's fun football. It doesn't make for outstanding chance to win the national championship, but you know what? It produced a finalist for the first time in the playoff era. So I think Big 12 football is in pretty good shape. Now, you know what? Big 12 doesn't match up to Georgia. Big 12 probably doesn't match up to Alabama. But Big 12 matched up with Michigan, and I don't see anybody else matching up with Georgia and Alabama on a consistent basis. So as opposed to, say, 18 months ago, I really like where Big 12 football is.
Barry, for Oklahoma in particular, as they transition in their last year or 2 if it all fell apart in the tide changes on them leaving after 1 year, but in their last year here in the Big 12 before they go into the SEC, how important is it for Brent Venables to build some momentum going out the door, or are we on the outside looking at the assessment of this past year wrong?
Oh, I think people are looking at the assessment of this past year incorrectly. But I think they looked at the assessment of the program going into the Venables year incorrectly. Lincoln Riley did not lead. He went 11-2 in his last year. He went 10-2, 12-2, or 11-2 every year he was in Norman. But the truth is, they weren't an 11-2 team. They went 6-1 in close games, 1-possession games. That's not sustainable, and we saw it swing the other way. Brent Venables went 0-4. The truth is, OU football has declined in the last 3-4 years. This is really a program that's about an 8-4 program right now in terms of talent. They're not as good as they were in 2017 when Bob Stoops handed the reins to Lincoln. It's not destitute. It's still really good compared to most Big 12 programs, but it's not the elite level to which they're accustomed. So he's not rebuilding from depth. Really not a 6-7 team. We saw that in the bowl game against Florida State. Florida State finished, 11th or 12th in the country. Had an exceptional year. Didn't have any opt-outs in the Cheez-It Bowl. OU had a few opt-outs and some injuries, and yet took Florida State to the wire. So Oklahoma's in pretty good shape by Big 12 standards. Now, they were always going to have some issues moving up with the SEC, and that's not because you meet a really good team every week. It's because you're eventually going to run into Georgia or Alabama, and then what are you going to do? So I think Oklahoma football is fine as long as they realize they're a long ways from the Crimson Tide or the Bulldogs.
Barry, circling back to Oklahoma State, what's going on with Spencer Sanders? What's the story as far as why he is not either firmly planted still in Stillwater or why he is not one of those mini quarterbacks that has now found the new home?
Well, the story on the street is he was asking for too much money in the NIL, which was probably a bad marketing ploy on his part. However, if you're the last quarterback standing, and by far the best quarterback standing, then all of a sudden it's back to being, a seller's market. So, the 2 schools most mentioned still needing a quarterback are Ole Miss and Auburn. And if Sanders can get those two guys into a bidding war, maybe he gets the money he wanted. I like Spencer. I'll be pulling for him. I hope it goes well. I wish he would have stayed. I don't blame him for going. I sort of hope he goes to Ole Miss because I think they're less crazy than the people at Auburn. But it's all relative. But
sure.
that's sort of my synopsis of Spencer Sanders. I don't know what's going on. He's a really good quarterback at Oklahoma State. He didn't get enough good blocking. The OSU offensive line's been a mess for 2 or 3 straight years. Baylor just tore Oklahoma State up in that Big 12 title game, and somehow they scratched out a way to have a chance to win. But until OSU gets some blocking, it doesn't matter. John Elway's their quarterback. So I think that's the quick version of Spencer Sanders.
Was there anything with him and Gundy, or is it just he wanted money and Stillwater wasn't a place to get it?
No, you hear stories about him and Gundy and him and the coordinator and him and the receivers. I don't know what to believe. I actually don't believe much of any of it. It might be true, but I'm not going to believe it. The truth of the matter is we live in a time of college football when everybody is restless and everybody is transient and people like to move. And that's not an indictment of college football. It's not even an indictment of sports. That's just the way American society is. I mean, on every level of sports, you see people jumping teams, whether it's the pros, now colleges, high schools. I mean, I assume it's in Texas. It's the same way in Oklahoma. You got all kinds of kids switching high schools every year. And you see it on the youth level. I got a 13-year-old granddaughter who plays softball on the travel ball. There's always girls jumping from one team to another. It's just the way society is. If we hire some really good writer from Missouri or New York or wherever, if we keep them 2 years, we consider it lucky because they get antsy and ready to move. It's just sort of the spirit of the age. I think college football fans are going to have to adjust and just realize that's the way it is.
Barry, it is, I'm 63 years old, and I've kind of had to learn a little bit about some of the new things. And at times, there's a part of me that tugs me to the past of when it seemed to be innocent. But there was a lot of this going on even back then. It wasn't as well known until somebody was investigated and put on probation. It's okay, right? I mean, college football's ratings, their numbers are massive right now.
I lost you for a minute. What was the last part?
College football seems to be fine no matter the changes or not. The numbers, the ratings are huge.
Yeah. Hey, listen, the games are great. I mean, yeah, we had a dud. Everybody's all worked up about the title game. Think back to the semifinals. We had 2 fabulous games. Look back to this Big 12 season. You didn't know who was going to win any game from week to week. I mean, TCU made the national championship, and they could have lost 4, 5, 6 games. So, Alabama played 4 games right down to the wire. They lost 2 of them. That's what happens when you go down to the wire. You win some, you lose some. We've reached a place of parity in college football. Now, it's not NFL parity. It's not anybody can win at parity. It's not, we'll never have a 65-7 game parity. But we've got much more equality than we used to have. I think it's a good move. You're right. People want to watch. People like to cheer. The game is financially healthy, unless you're crazy enough you want to go spend $1 million on some kid through NIL. I mean, if that's where you want to spend your money, knock yourself out. But otherwise, financially, it's healthy. The only thing we're doing is we're paying football coaches way too much money, but at least they're now starting to earn their money by having to monitor their rosters year round. So you're right. It's never been more popular. The only games people are going to watch are the ones they put on TV. So, it's like the old Seinfeld act when Jerry and George were going to get a deal on NBC and George comes up with a show about nothing, and Jerry says, "Why would we watch?" And George says, "Because it's on TV. Why are people going to watch this college football game? This Rice Southern Miss bowl game. because it's on TV, and they're going to watch.
Barry, as always, love it from your perspective. Thanks for your time. We appreciate you being on today's show.
You bet. See you later.
Barry Trammell, the Oklahoman who covers the state, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State.
Once in a while, somebody comes along and puts something into a metaphor that I completely understand and jive with. And why are they going to watch it? Because it's on TV.
Yeah.
It's something I totally get.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he's right. It's not that complicated. It's really not. And, I mean, all you have to do is look at the TV ratings. And, NFL, I might actually have a note on this later and off the radar. I mean, they dominate. They dominate. And that's why it's also crazy to talk about, how cable's dying or, whatever other programs. Live sports is fine, especially live football. Live football is fine. Everybody wants live football because live football will get viewers. It might not always be in the millions, but it's sure going to beat that Seinfeld rerun that's been on for the last 22 years, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, bring the people live football. America has said we will
digest it.
Yeah, we will digest it. We will eat it up. And, besides that, I mean, just in listening to Barry, and he knows the Oklahoma landscape as well as anybody. I mean, I'm with him as Oklahoma fan that, watched that brutal game in the Cotton Bowl a few months back and just had to, like everybody else, wonder what in the heck was in store with Brent Venables. Now, also being mindful of the fact that the quarterback play could not have really been worse in that game because of the fact that they didn't have Dylan Gabriel. I mean, that certainly led into that being as lopsided as it was because they had nothing on offense that day. But still, it was eye-opening just how bad of a whooping that was. And, there is a very up and down season. They very well could have won more games than they did, and they could have lost more games than they did. But I think by the end, the way that they played a Florida State team who was like riding all sorts of momentum and feeling like they're going to be in the playoff next year or, playing for the ACC title at the very least. I mean, they went toe-to-toe with that team and shouldn't have even been in that game, but got into that game because they're Oklahoma. And, dang near went and won it. And so they do have some big questions to answer. They do have some big, weight on their shoulders because they are Oklahoma, and they're going to be expected to do more than what they did last season in year two of Brent Venables. But I'm with them. As far as, being competitive and all that next year, I think they're fine. But, there are some things here in the next couple of years when you're making that move to the SEC that you got to get shored up, and you got to make sure that you're ready to go for that because that is a different ballgame you're entering into. And then, on the Oklahoma State side of things, that makes sense on Spencer Sanders' front, that just simply asking for too much money could be a reason why he's still out there. And very well could be Mike Gundy totally losing his grip or just tightening it and closing the doors all around him, which, inevitably leads to the same outcome. I mean, that's inevitably going to lead to the same outcome where he's no longer there. If that's, in fact, what he's doing is just digging himself in and digging his heels in. It might not be in the next year, but it will be sooner rather than later.
Well, and also on Spencer Sanders, he's one of the few names left, and Barry kind of alluded to this. And so now that pie, there's not as many pieces out there, so he might end up getting a pretty good deal when a team now looks around the room and goes, my God, he's the best one left. And he has been one of the best even from the beginning. When we come back, 3 players from the Big 12 were named to the All-American, the Football Writers Association of America All-American, the freshman All-American team. Who are they? And a note or two about those schools that produce players who get in the transfer portal, who are not a part of the Power 5, and a few of those names on the all-freshman team to just look for them as well.
And breaking coaching news on the coordinator front that we will come back with a notable team.
Absolutely. 365 Sports. This is David Smoak, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and we're right back in a moment. Ozem Motley coming to Woodway. The city of Woodway, discoverwoodway.com. The Grammy award-winning group, Ozem Motley, February the 1st, will be performing at the Pavilion Event Center. Kick off the Waco Family and Faith International Film Festival Wednesday, February the 1st, here in the Waco area, just on the southern part of Waco, the city of Woodway. You can go to discoverwoodway.com to click and purchase your tickets. Live music from Ozem Motley from 7 till 9. Tickets are $30 a piece. Limited seating available, so get your tickets now. Also, don't miss your next event or their next event. Stay up to date with the Woodway app. Discover Woodway app available on your phone. An enchanted evening father and daughter dance on February the 11th. DiscoverWoodway.com. You have your city at your fingertips. Again, the Discover Woodway app. Ozem Motley, February 1st, DiscoverWoodway.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
All right, the Football Writers Association of America voted for their freshman All-American team. Big 12 players included Baylor freshman running back Richard Reese, also Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas, a part of the team. On defense, Kendall Daniels, defensive back at Oklahoma State. Those are three players from the Big 12 who made the team. Congratulations. These are true freshmen. Now, here are some of the other names of the schools involved, and there's a lot of course, Power 5. Coastal Carolina, Ball State, Boise State, UTSA, Florida International, a couple of special teamers from Arkansas State and Buffalo. Those are the ones. Yes, you see the transfer portal, Power 5 to Power 5, even in conference to conference. Those are the ones that have, to me, been really the story of the transfer portal, from your stud Albany to Florida State, among others.
Yeah, guys, moving up a level. I think that's going to be the most interesting thing about the transfer portal going forward is how many overlooked kids that wind up at Albany, that wind up at Incarnate Word or somewhere else and really show out. Sometimes, look, it's kind of like, okay, I'll give you a basketball example. Baylor's one of their two best players, Adam Flagler, was at Presbyterian. Sometimes you just don't hit your stride until you get to that point and you're coached in a certain way, or you hit your growth spurt, or you start lifting weights and eating a certain way. People see you and it goes. I think that's one of the more interesting and I honestly favorite parts. I know it sucks for places like Albany, but about the transfer portal, because you can give somebody and bring them up to where they should be and give them that opportunity.
Yeah, right. Great for those guys. That's good for their schools right now, but they will almost certainly be on some senior and junior teams from, a different school next to their names. I think that's great. They get that time in the sun and they get a little bit of recognition, but now they're probably firmly on the radar of a bigger school as a result of that, if they weren't already. So, that's cool for them. And the freshman that you mentioned makes sense. Kelvin Banks is, he's a beast. He really is. And that Texas offensive line needed to really get transformed. And they obviously ponied up money-wise to make it even more enticing, other than just simply, being and playing at UT. And they were able to get some big recruits in there. And I think those guys are still maturing and evolving, but they're definitely on a much better tracked offensive line wise than they were over the last few years, and he's a big part of the reason why.
One more thing, Jackson Arnold from Geyer High School signed with Oklahoma, was the Gatorade National Player of the Year. That was announced earlier today. Not a surprise, he's a dynamic player from Denton. We're now joined by Max Olson, theathletic.com, the king of the portal, and he joins us on 365 Sports. So, Max, the deadline's approaching, correct, when players can get in the portal, at least for this time of the year?
Yeah, that's right. Grad transfers can still go in the rest of the spring, but for underclassmen, deadline's coming up on the, I think, 18th or 19th.
What did you think, and what do you think of Sawyer Robertson, who we had on the show yesterday, the young man from Mississippi State now coming to Baylor?
Yeah, it's funny. As much as the starters and the big Caleb Williams types of the world kind of get all the attention when they hit the portal, you can also go out and find some really good quarterbacks who can at least push your starter or compete for the job or be a very good backup for you. There's plenty of those guys in the portal, especially right now. I thought Sawyer Robertson was a good pickup for Baylor for sure. That was one that I'd heard that one might be coming. I thought there'd probably be some interest on the TCU side, so to see him commit to Baylor tells me that was a pretty good win for them, for a guy that I'm sure had some pretty good options. I think that especially when you can, it's so hard these days. Think back a couple of years ago and we would talk about, man, Baylor feels like they got 3-4 really good ones in their room. It's just hard to maintain that anymore, guys. You have a guy and you pick one and then the rest tend to leave. And so, I think when you can go find quality players on other rosters and get them and boost your depth that way, it's really important.
Max, what do you make of Spencer Sanders? He's been in there almost since day one and you really heard nothing about him.
Yeah, we've heard some stuff. There's been some talk. I think that certainly looks like going back to Oklahoma State is not an option from everything I've heard. I think that the two that he's been linked to would be Auburn and Ole Miss, and certainly the Ole Miss one's a little bit more curious because they've got a returning starter in Jackson Dart, and so is that bringing a veteran in? They lost Luke Altmaier, their backup, who is going to Illinois. So is that bringing a veteran in to back him up or to push him or to, open competition? Hard to say. And then obviously Auburn with the new coaching staff, Hugh Freeze, interested to see kind of how that quarterback situation shakes out there. Obviously Robbie Ashford got a big opportunity late in the year to audition for that one. So, that's the situation that Spencer Sanders seems to be in right now, which is hopefully getting on at one of those places and maybe not a guarantee that he'd be a starter at his next spot. And certainly I didn't expect that when he went in, but it's been a little bit of a rocky process for him.
Yeah, we were just talking to Barry Trammell. He mentioned like the money piece for Spencer Sanders, and just obviously then there was him and friction with Gundy and all that. Do you think he serves as a little bit of a cautionary tale potentially?
Potentially. You guys. I remember the last year we've talked plenty about Adrian Martinez, and obviously there's he had his issues with the program he left and stuff like that. But this is kind of why you try to keep it to yourself and move forward and try and find the good spot, because that's not as experienced as these guys are sometimes. It's not automatic that they're going to go exactly where they want. And, you hear that there's been some great issues there too. Like, it's just these recruitments, as much as they look like really glamorous, especially for these experienced quarterbacks, they can be a little bit more complicated than you'd think. And yeah, I think certainly, depending on where he ends up, maybe some regrets about how this all played out.
What did you think of that national championship game on Monday night?
Yeah, wasn't close. Wasn't very close. We can go drive by drive here. I don't really think we have to. I think
touchdown. Yeah.
Yeah, touchdown. I think Georgia punted one time. That was a good one for TCU.
Right.
No, I think. I was disappointed. Obviously, that it wasn't closer. I thought if it's going to be like a game like that, you'd at least think that TCU could go out and score 21, 28 points and try to fight in the first half there. But it just got away from them so quickly with the turnovers in the first half, and really just from halftime on, just feeling like you had no chance to get back into that. And so just so impressive. I think this Georgia team, probably last year's Georgia team was probably a little bit more talented in my opinion. And so to see the way that they rolled to 15-0 with this group and everything that they did is so impressive. And, I don't think it takes away, like, to me, it doesn't make TCU season fraudulent or say that, oh man, that was bogus that they got to the title game or anything like that. It was an awesome run for that group, but man, they just ran into a buzzsaw there out in LA.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to fight the Avengers and you're not going to win. But Max, other big recruiting news, I guess, yesterday would have been Jaden Rashada from Florida, that he wants to be released from his NIL, or is at least exploring that because the multi-million-dollar NIL deal has fallen apart. Do you think we will see more stories like this coming in the future, or is this maybe once every few years we're going to see somebody get mad about their NIL deal and then bolt after they've signed?
I think that we will see some stories like this. Honestly, guys, it kind of reminds me of like the Carlos Correa stuff going on, right? Where you sort of like, what? I mean, it's a big name and reportedly a big deal, and now it's falling apart, and you're like, what the heck's going on here? I mean, I think it's not surprising if you followed the Jaden Rashada recruitment for the past year and the way that he got shopped around, and the way that he commits to Miami and then flips to Florida. And obviously there's a lot of a lot of bitter recruiting battles between Florida and Miami, especially involving NIL. And so a lot of red flags there with him and his dad. And I mean, in some ways I actually kind of feel bad for the kid, because I think it's a lot of the adults that are having the problems with that stuff. But I think it's you've got a situation where we'll see how it plays out here over the next 24 hours. But I would imagine he's, if I had to guess right now, I'm guessing he's probably not going to Florida. And I don't know what that means in terms of what comes next. But, man, it's kind of a bad look for everybody involved, honestly. And certainly there's going to be some serious questions about what's going on with their collective and where does this kid go next.
I wonder if proactively, who's going to be the first former player to, make claims that he was treated poorly, to almost even come out with a book or whatever about it, or some sort of exclusive interview. Do you think we'll see that after the first 2 or 3 years of the transfer portal or NIL?
I mean, we may see with this one, we may see the dad tried to sue them for breach of contract or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who knows? You know what I mean? This is all brand new territory in some ways. When you talk about making financial promises to recruits and getting them to sign, and then some question as to whether you're delivering on them and the contract or not. And so just a whole new world here. But yeah, you're right. I think probably years from now we will have some tell-alls about what all went on here. And honestly, the Jaden Rashada one that you could probably do a book on based on just everything that's gone on here in the last year. And I mean, hopefully for the kid, he kind of finds the right place to go and can actually go live up to his potential.
Max Olson, theathletic.com with us, college football senior writer. on Thursdays at 4. So Baylor, which last year was, I guess they had Siaka Ika a couple of years ago, but they have, for the most part, been very, very quiet when it comes to adding too many transfers. This year, Sawyer Robertson, Keatron Jackson, Dominic Richardson, the Barrington brothers, Jake Roberts, Mike Smith from Liberty, Dunson from Miami, a kicker from Michigan State. Do you feel like that they've kind of added to the cupboard, with at least from where you are with those names?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've picked up some good talent there. Was really, have kept an eye on the Barrington brothers over the years, just from doing freshman All-American teams and stuff like that. And those guys certainly stood out. Always looked really good in terms of PFF grading and stuff like that. So to see them hit the portal, I kind of knew right away, okay, these guys are going to have some really good options, but you certainly knew the relationship with the guys on the Baylor staff was probably going to win out there. So really like those additions in terms of fortifying what they're doing up front. I think certainly you needed a weapon like Keatron Jackson last year, and so interested to see him come home and kind of be maybe the missing piece for them. And then Dominic Richardson's a guy that they really leaned on him so much last year at Oklahoma State. The whole run game was built around him because they didn't really trust the true freshman. And he's a guy that has been very productive at times at Oklahoma State. So I think if you can put him in a situation where he is sharing carries with Richard Reese and other guys, I think that's going to be better for him, and you're going to kind of be able to bring out the best from him, which I don't know if we've totally seen yet.
As you posted, it was a couple hours ago, but Auburn with the big pickup of Justin Rogers, the defensive lineman from Kentucky. What have been your sort of initial impressions in watching Freeze and his staff navigate the portal and just get underway?
Yeah, that's a staff that has certainly gone out and chased a lot of premium players since they got there at Auburn, and they picked up quite a few. I really like that pickup. Justin Rogers is just one of those big bodies from the SEC that everybody offers and wants. As soon as he went in the portal, you had a ton of SEC schools trying to get him on campus for a visit. They picked up Dylan Wade, the offensive tackle from Tulsa. That was a big head-to-head win over USC for Philip Montgomery and the staff there. I love some, Gunnar Britton, the offensive line from Western Kentucky, Rivaldo Fairweather, a tight end from FIU, who's I think a really good player. They've picked up some pretty good ones here. I mean, it's always interesting to see, especially these new staffs. They go out there and they have a lot of needs, and they tend to be the ones that throw out a lot of offers. And Auburn has been able to go out and win some of those battles.
So Max Spencer Sanders remains out there. Who else are the elite names? Are there any? Who else is out there that you wait for the shoe to drop?
Yeah, we're kind of hitting that point, especially as you guys know, these teams are getting back to campus here, and spring semester starting, off-season workouts and all that. So it is starting to thin out in terms of the best available thing that I do. I think Dante Cephas from Kent State is a really good wide receiver who I'm excited to see where he goes. J. Michael Sturdivant, a wide receiver from DFW area who had a freshman All-American season at Cal. He's got a big decision ahead, probably UCLA and TCU and others in the mix there. There's a couple that haven't hit the portal yet, but are expected to. A couple, big-time recruits who are true freshmen. Walker Howard from LSU, Jaheim Singletary, the cornerback from Georgia. Some of those guys, we'll see how many of those go in here in the next few days. But, it's in terms of the big names besides Sanders, you're starting to see those guys come off the board yesterday. Jordan Birch, the South Carolina edge rusher, went to Oregon. Anthony Lucas from Texas A&M going to USC. Those are two big ones that made commitments yesterday. And so, these good ones that are out there, it's definitely decision time and time to get moved into your next place.
Max, Clemson let go of Brandon Streeter. Dabo Swinney went in-house last time when he lost, both Venables and Tony Elliott. Do you think he stays in-house, or is this a signal of maybe a big Venables-type move coming for him at offensive coordinator?
Yeah, certainly the curious option there would be, do you bring back Jeff Scott, who left to go be the head coach at USF and did not have a successful tenure there, but nobody knows that program better than Jeff Scott. And so that would be the comfortable move to bring him back and put him back in charge of the offense. But, you're certainly wondering, is Dabo going to, be willing to bring in new ideas in that place and chase somebody else? Certainly, if Clemson's out there on the market for an OC, I'm sure they're willing to spend and go get a really good one. But if it's not Jeff Scott, I'm curious to see which direction Dabo wants to go in there.
Max, thank you as always. Thursdays at 4, Max Olson, college football senior writer for theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports. The Transformational Committee is winding down. Dr. Linda Livingstone, president at Baylor, they were brought together, I think, to kind of bring some stability, whatever that could be, along with at least some peace a little bit, or some vision. Dr. Livingstone today quoted, as a collective enterprise, we are both thriving and threatened. There are some new ideas, and in fact, Chris Vanini from theathletic.com, expanding the NCAA tournaments will be looked at, but not happening yet. And I think most people don't want to see the men's tournament expand. It is already at, 68? But there's thoughts about going higher. Requirements to be an FBS school could change. I would think maybe more difficult.
Yeah.
Because the pie, the money, I don't know. And then also details will be worked out on sports committees as far as certain sports have their own basic, I think like football or basketball or whoever will have their own czar, so to speak.
Yeah. I hope that when we hit the 30th and 40th anniversary of this in college athletics, that we celebrate this like we do Title IX. Like, I really do. I know that that's very lofty, but for the sake of college athletics, I hope this group of people has done some things that will resonate for a long time so they can say, look what we did. We came together, we saw a need, we fixed a problem, and it's resonated through our institutions for all this time, like Title IX did, but color me pessimistic, even with the respect I have for a lot of people on there, just because I think you can have a committee that has a lot of great ideas and gives a lot of great plans, but now it's on the institutions that you give them to execute it, and that's where I lose my faith.
What can you actually enforce in some of this too? Like, I mean, that's great. They got together again and talked about some stuff. I mean, that's fine. That's good. I mean, I know this committee's trying to do the best that it can to transform the NCAA and bring it into the modern era and tweak it as best they can. But I hear those 4 letters and I just eye roll. I mean, I really do at this point. And I don't know. I think it might be too late to totally try to save face. So they're definitely transforming. Whether for the better or worse remains to be seen. But, I guess it's good that they're chipping away. I just don't know what the end goal ultimately is. Like, when's the work finished? You know what I mean? Like, what else is still on the to-do list? What has to be enforced? What's actually changing? Give me something to chew on, because I hear a lot of they're working to do this and they're meeting again to do this and they're working on this. And it's like, but what's different than what it always has been? I don't know. I could not tell you what single thing is different from what, it was, so to speak. So that's great. I mean, one other thing that apparently was mentioned was the whole, a new women's basketball tournament, a secondary tournament that will accompany the NCAA tournament, 32-team D1 women's tournament, the equivalent of the NIT, according to Nicole Auerbach, but it won't be the women's NIT. It'll be a privately owned separate tournament. So that was also coming out of today, a second women's basketball tournament, but it won't be the women's NIT. So, I mean, there's a change, and that's something that's certainly different and will be good news for some other schools out there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an uphill battle on a slippery slope, and you don't have good shoes on. It's kind of what it feels like, but good luck to them. Best wishes.
I think, Paul, I cannot be the one to inform you, I'll do it now, that next spring, or when this new secondary women's basketball tournament starts, that we'll send you there.
It's going to be our on-court reporter?
So,
yeah. That'll be good.
So beyond the 64 teams and then the 32 teams that are the women's NIT, there's going to be 32 more teams that need to play in a tournament. Like,
I don't know.
I would say no to this, just like the CBI.
No, I get it.
I get you're trying to. I think the NCAA, especially given how badly they treated the women's basketball tournament and how badly they have botched enforcing their own rules and standards in that, which is shameful in what they've done. One set of weights in a room for 64 teams of people. Like, I mean, what 19?
And they were like little bit, like the little
what 1951 dude did you put in charge of that? It was like, well, the little women don't need weights.
It's like what you see in a lot of hotels.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. They need to focus on making the women's tournament that they have better.
Yeah.
And taking care of the athletes, making sure more people see it, making sure more people go, getting to the target audience a little better than they have.
Yep.
Do you have something, Garrett? Okay. Yeah, I mean, the recommendations that they have out there are, interesting to look at, recommending the formation of sports-specific management committees. So you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they'll use the word czar, but it'll be something along those lines. Recommending D1 team sports sponsored by more than 200 schools should implement a postseason that includes 25% of the teams that meet the D1 standard in the sport. So that's more of just trying to gussy up the postseason, and I guess add more teams, which I don't think more equals better. Like you're saying, and then a lot of requirements as far as like medical coverage and things like that. So there's some stuff that, I mean, I know there's hardcores that love every aspect of every element of every angle of the business. And then there's some of us that just like recruiting on the field, like coaching moves, and like, let's kind of keep it there. And then some of the rule stuff you got to know as well, but mostly like want to stick to like the meat of it and not so much get into like the legislative part of this, because I just don't care about legislation and things like that. But, if it changes for the better, good for them. It sure as hell better, because they've been working on it for so long. Yeah. This better be a positive step in the right direction, or is all a colossal waste of time.
What do I hate? Wasting time. Mm-hmm. I hate it. It's a pet peeve of mine. And I understand there are some times when they're very, very critical. I hate meetings. And that doesn't mean you can't have good ones that can create ideas and also solutions. But there are people in this world that work around. I mean, they meet to have another meeting, and that's all they do. And then you wonder if many things happen. Like Craig said, this is Methuselah, that it just takes forever for any kind of change. But at least Dr. Livingstone and Greg Sankey, among others, were on the list. They're there for a reason, because the NCAA right now is dying. Not a slow death. It's not good at all. They gotta figure it out. When we come back, Cowboys and the NFL playoffs start this week. Cowboys open up Monday against Tampa Bay.
And that Brandon Streeter note was the one that I teased before, but Paul asked Max about that. But yeah, that is of note that Brent Venables going a different direction on offense. Thank you, Garrett. That was what we were teasing right before we got into the Max segment, but he talked about that a little bit, and that's notable, because that was, probably the biggest talking point was the coaching side of things for Dabo and company, outside of, the season being really about the quarterback spot and how, that was very topsy-turvy. And then by the end of it, you feel like, okay, they've got their guy now. It's Cade Klubnik. They're going to move forward with him, but they're going to move forward with him being coached by somebody else.
Yeah, Jeff Scott bringing that up is very interesting by Max, and it is – I mean, it shouldn't be cold water. If you're a Clemson fan, he was great for you. So bringing him back would be excellent news. I just think that based on the Clemson Twitter responses I saw right after it, it was great. Now call Cliff Kingsbury. That might not do it for them if you're expecting Cliff. And maybe it will be Cliff. Who knows? But I do think Jeff Scott makes the most amount of sense, given what we know about Dabo and how he likes to keep things in the Dabo tree.
Garrett, check your email if you wouldn't mind. There's one more. It's a local and also Big 12 note that we'll get to here before we take the break. Mickey Spagnola, again, will join us in just a moment on the Cowboys in the NFL playoffs as they open up on Monday against Tampa Bay.
By the way, if I sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just looking at myself on this TV, and I'm looking up, and that's because there's a new TV. So if you see me looking like this, we got a new monitor, and so it looks strange catching myself on television.
Has that not always been there?
No.
There's a new one bigger and higher than it was. It's been there since Monday.
Is it not one of those channel things like
no
black and white?
No.
No, okay. All right. I thought that's always been there.
Oh, my gosh. Both of you. Do you guys know?
It's the first day it's on, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was not on yesterday.
It just had a graphic.
Just a black square to me.
Yeah, yesterday we had an issue and it did not pop on.
All right, we know this young man. We had him on the show. We covered him in high school. Travius Hodges Tomlinson, with his appreciation of TCU, the history of the program, and much more. He is declaring for the 2023 NFL Draft. Of course, had a rough night Monday night, as did everybody in purple against the national champion Georgia Bulldogs. But Travius Hodges-Tomlinson is entering the NFL Draft and making that official today. Great, great young man, great player. And they discussed this as well in the game. He has to fight the size. The NFL scouts will look at some of what he does and they'll drool. And there's going to be some that no matter what he does or doesn't do, they're going to look at him and say he can't play because of his size.
Yeah, I would caution them, those people who said maybe the same things about Tyrann Mathieu or Budda Baker. Sometimes you're just good, you're good. And yeah, he'll have to fight it in the NFL, but if you can get around and cover guys and make plays on the ball, you can make it work. So he's the Thorpe Award winner for a reason.
One too small to win the Thorpe Award, and there were a bunch of schools that didn't want him because he was too small, and they missed out on the guy who ended up winning the Thorpe Award. So, he's exceeded expectations previously, probably most of his life, and I'm sure he'll do the same in the NFL. I don't know how high he'll go. He'll certainly be drafted, and I know that he'll be, one of the probably more talked about cornerbacks in this draft and just defensive backs overall. But yeah, I don't know, because of that size issue, kind of where he fits in as far as the puzzle pieces go. But hey, if nothing else, they got some tape on him that will be very valuable for Monday night, because they saw him going up against a bunch of future NFL guys, and for better or worse, they now have seen him against the absolute best and can add that to the collection of what he did throughout the year that earned him that Thorpe Award against a bunch of Big 12 offenses. So good for Travius, one of the better, certainly not the best defensive high school players I've ever seen, but just overall high school players, what he did on returns at Midway as well. One of the better players I've ever seen, and very happy for him.
All right, Trey Tomlinson, again, now entering the NFL Draft. Good for him. He was a fantastic player and one of those diamonds in the rough that TCU got, and, of course, he got better along the way. When we come back, Mickey Spagnola, 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. I was on the phone, actually, today with the local owner, Bob Mock. He has 5 locations in Waco, in Woodway, Hewitt, Robinson, China Spring, and in Belle Meade. They're looking for people. They're looking for drivers. They're looking for managers. They're looking for positions at any of their 5 locations. The growth has been fantastic. But, yes, in some places, businesses, it's hard to find people who really want to work. Opportunities, for example, employee discounts on meals, benefits including insurance. So if you are or know someone who's like, I can't find a job, or I don't know where to look, Marco's Pizza, 5 locations in Waco. They are hiring right now. Bob Mock's a great dude. We've known him for a long, long time. He's been in the pizza business forever. Again, the 5 locations. Marco's hiring for all positions in the Waco area. You can go to marcos.com, look for the Waco businesses, the Waco stores. Business, again, has been great. We, of course, have Marco's Pizza delivered here on occasion. I order them at times when I'm home, and a lot of people do. Marco's looking for people to help them drive. And I used to deliver pizzas. Made a bunch of money working for a pizza company back in the day. Made really good money. You can too. Marcos.com.
Fans qualified buyers at 5.49% for 72 with 5,000 down, cash or trade. TTL Electric. See deal for details.
It's the New Year, New Ride pre-owned savings event at Richard Carr with the biggest selection in years on pre-owned cars and trucks. Qualified buyers can find great deals like a 2014 Buick Encore for only $149 a month, or a 2015 Kia Sorento for $237 a month, or a 2015 Ford F-150 truck for $392 a month. Over 80 used, thoroughly inspected vehicles in stock. 100% approval is always our goal. Get here now for the New Year, New Ride savings event at Richard Carr.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
What are you waiting for? Next year's New Year's resolution to lose weight, get fit, start working out? 3, 2, 1, go to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. If you really want to get in shape, get rid of weight or inches, you have to make a commitment to work out, and the excuses of not enough time, you're too tired or too busy. There's a special place that will change your life at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. And they have a commitment to you too. With personal trainers Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bosch, state-of-the-art state-of-the-art Cybex equipment, new weights and spin bikes, clean and spacious locker rooms, each with a whirlpool and sauna, and a staff that will know your name when you walk through the front door. Elite tennis facilities and a great tennis pro in Britt Coleman. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a place you can call home, a place you can work out on your own or with 40-plus group exercise classes. It's time for you to get in shape, lose inches, get fit at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
This is 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com.
Prescott fires, caught, Lamb, touchdown.
Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
We'll have Mickey in a moment. NFL playoffs about to begin this weekend, and to me, it's just a different level. You could tell the players, that doesn't mean they don't try hard from week 1 through 17, 18, whatever it is, but it's something different, man. Somebody gets hot, who knows what a bunch of great storylines entering the playoffs. I want to give a little bit of time, and my golf buddies are not going to like this at all because Ben Hagen, former Baylor athlete, by the way, had a hole-in-one on number 5 at Bear Ridge. You think he's going to let you know about it? There it is. Taking it out 140 yards, I think an 8-iron on number 5, which is an uphill, very difficult par 3 that, in fact, Tom Watson said he loved the hole when he visited Waco maybe a couple of years ago. We're now joined by Mickey. Nope, we don't.
Nope. Hasn't picked up the phone yet.
You know, I'm looking at that list. I'm looking at the Mickey. He has 5 numbers in there.
Well, it's different numbers for whatever office he can jump into at the Star.
Yeah, okay, we'll get him. From our own goal hat trick on Twitter on Trey Hodges-Tomlinson's decision to turn pro. We'll always remember how he and his family tried to troll Baylor during his recruitment. I won't remember that. I'll remember what a great football player he was at Midway. I remember that, again, he was on the verge of basically he was going to commit to Baylor, but Baylor said, no, you have to commit and you're going to sign. Didn't happen. Ended up at TCU where we always thought he probably would end up. But Trey Hodges-Tomlinson, I love watching him play, covering him play, and I love what he was able to do at TCU.
Yeah, I think that you're inventing things.
I don't think there was any trolling.
There's no trolling.
Yeah.
There's no trolling on that part. Travius was trying he really wanted TCU, obviously, because it's his legacy. It's where his uncle, Ladanian, went. That's where he wanted to be. And they had not yet come calling. And so he was getting to a point where he was he was trying to push and push and push. But it also, he was under-recruited, well, not just by Baylor, TCU, and the Big 12. He was under-recruited by everybody. He's a Thorpe Award winner. He did not have some people knocking down his door because of his size. So there was no trolling on Travis's part. I think, had Gary Patterson not reacted how he did, then Travis Hodges might have been at Baylor.
Well, he very well would have been, because that's where he was going to commit. And, the thing you can argue is what would have it meant as, Baylor being a placeholder, but he was going to commit. He put out the commit tweet. He committed on early signing day to Baylor. There was a graphic. There was a whole tweet. It was up for like 5 minutes, and then it was suddenly gone. And that's when you're like, wait a second, what just happened here? And it never came back. And that's when we learned that, he wanted to commit to Baylor, and he wanted to go there. Asterisk, if TCU didn't come calling, and because that was his dream school, that was something that he wanted to be able to still explore, because I guess he had already started getting feelers, or maybe there was some scuttlebutt, maybe a couple letters sent his way that maybe there was a chance. And so, he wanted to leave the door open, but I can understand on Matt Rule's part at the time, Matt Rule, that he was like, I'm not going to accept your commitment and then risk that you go and commit to TCU in a month from now. Like, if you're going to commit, you have to sign today to Baylor, and then it's over. But if you're not going to sign, then we're not going to accept your commitment. And so he didn't want to sign.
Yep.
They didn't accept it. He got more attention from TCU and ended up in Fort Worth, where he wanted to be, and he won a Thorpe Award, so good for him.
Cowboys and Buccaneers on Monday night. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, with us on 365 Sports. Mickey, I know it was kind of a lot of moving parts. It was a weird and strange and emotional week last week with obviously Hamlin and the story with Buffalo and a lot of moving parts. But were you stunned at the lack of most anything Cowboys on Sunday in Washington?
Yeah, somewhat. Although going into the game, I was a little worried about that offensive line. The fact that their solution to compensating for the loss of Tyler Biadasz was to move the left guard, Connor McGovern, to center, move the left tackle, Tyler Smith, to left guard, and bring in 40-year-old Jason Peters to play left tackle, which he hadn't played probably more than, 30 snaps in a game since the last game of the previous season. So I was a little worried about that. I thought they could overcome it, and I thought the downfall was twofold. Number one, the offense obviously, dudded out, if that's a verb. And a lot of that had to do with their inability up front to even run block, let alone protect Dak. And then they can continue to experiment at the cornerback position to see how they were going to work that out without Anthony Brown. And they hadn't really found a solution there yet going into that game. And then Deron Bland goes out with a chest injury, and it's like, okay, now we're without 3 of our top 4 corners. How are we going to fix this? And so, I think when you put those leaving the game, that was my biggest worry. Not the fact that they lost and the way they lost, but what's going to happen going forward, right? Well, I think they got good news today from the injury report. Tyler Biadasz wasn't even on it, and if he was full. Deron Bland wasn't on it. Leighton Vander Esch looks like he's ready to go at linebacker, and Jonathan Hankins, their kind of run-stopping defensive tackle, he's on IR, so they didn't have to list him on the injury report, but he should be good to go also. So, it was just a combination of things. And if you look at, David, what the defense did, I mean, Washington ended up a pick 6, right? And then the punter drops the snap, right? And it gets recovered at the 20, and all they had to do was go 20 yards for a touchdown. So really, the defense held them to 13 points. You can live with that. You just couldn't live with just scoring 6.
Mickey, I think Cowboy fans might be having tightness in their chest because they just played their worst game of the season overall. Like you said, a lot of that may not be a big deal given the overall circumstances of what was kind of going to have to happen for them to benefit and their stars to change out of that game had they won anyway. But they're also going into Tampa to play the team that they played their other worst game of the season against, which was the first one. Why will this time be different?
Well, I'd look at it this way. The offense has played pretty darn well since, Dak came back. I understand what happened in the first game, but they held Tampa to 19 points, right? If I told you they're going to hold Tampa to 19 points, what do you think is going to happen? I think they'll win, right? Mm-hmm. So again, the offense just wasn't in sync in that opening game. But if we look at the body of work throughout the season, especially the 9 straight games when they averaged 36 points a game with Dak on the field, they were pretty darn good. So I don't think you can wipe out that and just take what happened in the opener. I thought they did a heck of a job on Tom Brady in that first game. They held him to like 222 yards offense, 1 touchdown, intercepted 1. So, should we look at the season opener in 2021 when they got beat 31-29 on basically a walk-off field goal? So I just think they're a better team. I don't know what you guys think. I don't what little I've seen of Tampa Bay and looking at their kind of their season. And I'm not looking at 8 and 9. I'm just kind of looking at some of the games and how close they were playing games, especially winning. I just think the Cowboys have a better team. But as you pointed out, now, will that better team play like that on Monday night?
How much and I've watched a lot of Bucs games because they've been on TV a lot. I've seen some of those, dramatic Tom Brady comebacks like we've seen from him for a long, long time. It does seem as if they're in the game, if Dallas doesn't put them away, for example, like an Aaron Rodgers with Green Bay, he seems to be somebody, if you have 8 minutes left and you're up 2 or down 2 or whatever, you got to put them away. Isn't that one of the keys? Not that Dallas can't kick a field goal to win it at the end, but isn't that one of the things this Monday they got to just put them away?
Don't let them have the ball last when they're within a score to be able to win the game. You're exactly right. And I'm trying to remember who said this. But it was like one of the players pointed out, and I think it was J-Ron Curse, and Mike McCarthy kind of said it early in the week. He said, Tom Brady is great in moments, meaning the key moments in games, he's really good. And he lives for a 2-minute drill at the end of the game to be able to win. So you got to keep him out of those moments. And you're exactly right. Don't let him have the ball with a game on the line because he's lethal on those 2-minute drills. He's awfully good at it, and that's what makes, I think, separate. Well, there's a lot of things that separate him, right, from every other quarterback. But that's one of his greatest attributes is be able to drive the ball and win a game in the big moment.
Mickey, so you're not daunted. Like I guess I'm kind of panicked because they've never beaten Tom Brady. It's the playoffs, and I'm always sad at the end of the year. I just need to see it all happen so I can relax a little bit.
Well, Paul, you said they.
Yeah.
The Cowboys organization hasn't beaten him.
Yeah.
This team has only lost to him basically the majority of these guys twice, right? Yeah. And one on a walk-off field goal. This team had nothing to do with 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, and there were only 15 guys on this team that played them in 2019 when they got beat 13-9 in that driving rainstorm in Foxborough, when basically it was the same thing. They only scored 1 touchdown in that game, and it came after, guess what? The Cowboys had a punt blocked, and New England recovered it at the 12-yard line, and Brady threw a 10-yard touchdown pass. And they held them basically to field goals until that happened. So they've been close, with think about this. With Quincy Carter at quarterback in 2003, they only lost 12-0, right? So the defense was pretty good. They just didn't have any offense. So, again, if you go all the way back, the guys on this team, only one of them was there in 2011, Tyron Smith. Only 3 of them were there in 2015 when they got beat 30-6. And we're talking Super Bowl teams. You know, it wasn't like they were losing to Little Sisters of the Poor. We're talking about teams that were going to the Super Bowl year in and year out. So, again, I don't put any stock in 7-0. If you want to give me 2-0 against the Cowboys, I'll take that. But these guys had nothing to do with 2003. And as Micah Parsons said, I can't worry about the Cowboys. I can't change the Cowboys' history. I can change what happens Monday night. And that's all I got to concentrate on.
Mickey, one more thing. I appreciate your time again. Tampa Bay is a seasoned team. Cowboys have some old cagey veterans as well. Does that matter in the playoffs that you have some people that have been through this? Not just Brady, of course, Brady, but they kind of have still enough left from what they did to win that Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Does that matter when they start the playoffs?
Well, it was only, what, was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the experience and playoff experience matters. Micah Parsons talked about it today. And he was talking about, he goes, I prepared for the playoffs last year. He goes, but I didn't really comprehend the magnitude of losing because it was like, okay, we lost. Oh, we don't have any more games. It's all over with. And so he talked about how he's put in extra time this week, watched extra film to make sure that he doesn't do what he can to not feel that same way. But I think the veteran guys, and I was talking about this last night. I was on a radio show with Darren Woodson, and he said the veterans have to explain to the younger players, how this thing, if you lose, it's over, it's ends. You got to do extra work to make sure you're ready to go. And I think the other thing that they understand that they got to do is start fast. They didn't start fast last year, right? They were coming on against San Francisco at the end of the game and ended up losing by 6 points when the clock ran out at the 20-yard line. And I think that one hurts too. So I think there's something to that. The playoff, I always tell people when I watch these games, you play preseason games and guys that hadn't played in an NFL game, all of a sudden that opener, the speeds up. And then you play the whole season, but when you get in the playoff, it speeds up again. And I think the veteran guys have to talk the young guys through that and have them ready to go for a game that, you either win or you're done.
Mickey, thank you. Enjoy Tampa. Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com with us on Thursdays in the 5 o'clock hour. Craig's got off the radar and some breaking news right now. Right? You want to do it now?
I want to do breaking news right
All right, let's
now,
go, Garrett.
Because this is huge breaking news in college football. We were just talking about Clemson, right, just a few minutes ago, talking about Dabo, and the search for an offensive coordinator is now apparently over for Dabo Swinney and the Tigers, as they are apparently set to hire TCU offensive coordinator Garrett Riley. That from multiple sources now. Saw Adam Rittenberg all over that, and also Ross Dellinger all over that. Apparently Riley already is or has made his way to Clemson, South Carolina. And it looks like, TCU's getting poached. Dabo with the big swing of the stick to bring in one of the hottest names in all of college football. Although Monday night, obviously, just TCU all around Monday night. Let's just flush that because it taints everything else. But before that game, everything was pretty golden. So Garrett Riley apparently headed to Clemson to take over as offensive coordinator.
Well, I asked Max about it. Is this a Venables-size move? And it absolutely is a Venables-type move because Clemson was scoring a bunch of points on offense and not stopping anybody on defense. They've kind of flipped that script a little bit, although their offense wasn't as bad as you would have it out to be. It was just kind of uneven and not what they were getting. And So Brandon Streeter was hired from within when Tony Elliott left. A couple weeks ago, or was it last week, I did the, teams on shaky ground that Clemson was actually kind of on it because, it was hard to see what the plan was for Dabo. If he was kind of keep spinning his wheels in this, or if after a couple years where they lost 3 games and weren't competing for the college football playoff, if he was going to make a big move. Well, this is a huge move. This is a really huge move.
And again, he just won the Broyles Award for the top assistant coach in America, earned that for what TCU was able to do with Max Duggan and offensively, playing for the national championship. And so Clemson has already found their offensive coordinator. Dabo did have a plan.
He did have a plan. And, I mean, I do find that some of the, as Dabo lost his touch and things this dude's won some natties now. He's he's the guy that basically dismantled the monopoly on the natties from one particular conference. Yep. So, I understand the concerns and all of that. And when you set such a high bar for yourself, basically you have to be perfect or else you're going to get criticized for it. But my gosh, I mean, Dabo he didn't forget how to coach and he didn't forget how to hire and recruit and do those things. And so I don't think he's made every great move under the sun, but hard to complain about this one, man, because that's a big old swing of the stick, like I said. And I know that Garrett Riley, there's plenty of other schools out there that either wanted to talk to him or had to, that love the idea of Garrett Riley being their OC. I saw an Ohio State fan damn, wish we could have got him. But that's a huge, and him and Cade Klubnik. That's the thing. He was just rolling with Max Duggan. Now he's gonna have Cade Klubnik as the starting quarterback. And, you would hope, better receivers than more of the likes that we've seen from Clemson over the years, skill guys. But that's an awesome move for the Tigers.
Shipley?
Will Shipley, yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll see tons of him in action with Klubnik and the rest of that crew lighting up scoreboards, I would imagine.
I'm not sure. You guys help me here. Jared M. on Twitter. I think the next TCU offensive coordinator is currently living a few miles north of Fort Worth. He used to coach with your buddy Phil and has ties with Sonny Dykes.
Seth Luttrell?
Well, he's not north of Fort Worth. Well, not anymore. Denton. He's gone.
Well, I mean,
that could be the possibility. Yet. I don't know if that would scratch the itch, or is he talking about somebody else? I don't know if there's anybody else from North Texas.
If I'm a TCU fan, Seth Luttrell would scratch the heck out of my itch.
No, and it's definitely Seth Luttrell that he's referring to.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate that on Twitter. All right, when we come back, Craig's off the radar. Just after 5, Robert Allen, his view on what is going on in Stillwater, Oklahoma with today's news. Derek Mason headed out, and Oklahoma State, of course, has gained some, lost some, kind of under the water right now as far as the plus and minus, and maybe more to come. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, brand new location. Pioneer Steel and Pipe in business since 1943. And, I mean, that's a long time ago. 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe with a brand new location, a new facility, more than twice the size of their old one, allowing, of course, new inventory, higher quantities of inventory in a much more organized fashion. In addition to their standard long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, they now carry several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut, which will save time for anyone who doesn't need or cannot haul the longer lengths. 2,500 square foot showroom alone. Over 1,000 new products in stock, welding supplies and hardware. Do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you're a professional contractor or a weekend warrior. Carrying Quickcrete, so you can now get post pipes, hinges, latches, and concrete for your fences and gates, saving you the time of having to go to several places for material. The new facility, bigger, better, faster, stronger, with the old core values of Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where the handshake means something, relationships mean something, and also their history and tradition and product means something. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, the new location just east of I-35 in the southeast part of Waco on Loop 340.
Kick off 2023 with a bang at the Start Something New sales event. Start your year off with incredible savings like 2.9% for 72 months on 2022 Ram 1500 crew cabs on all trim levels. Lone Stars, Laramies, and top-of-the-line Longhorn and Longhorn Limited, or get values up to $3,750 on a Ram 1500 Lone Star crew cab, plus 4.9% for 72 months. Pick from the best selection of Ram trucks in Central Texas at Allen Samuels in Waco.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or CreateACommotion.com.
All right, welcome back into 365 Sports, and it's time for a little Off the Radars. There's a lot going on today. I was just commenting during the break that a couple days ago didn't have like a ton of stuff really to work with, but today there's probably too much to be able to even get into, which is fine because we can kind of scatter it around. I did notice this kind of coming down here recently on West Virginia's front is, Bob Huggins is struggling right now, guys. And the Big 12, in basketball right now is a bit of a struggle. You got 3 teams at 1-3 in conference play with Baylor and the Oklahoma schools, and then you got West Virginia and Texas Tech, who are both 0-4 now at this point. And I know Texas Tech's set to get back one of their highly expected stars. And Fardaw's, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, I'll be honest with you. Amac or Imac.
I saw Austin Massey mention that he's getting healthy.
Yeah, so they're expected to have him back soon. I pronounced for the butchering of that. I'm usually very good about pronunciations, but just didn't get to being able to see that properly. But you know who I'm referring to if you're a Texas Tech fan, so congratulations on that. But they are 0-4 right now, as is West Virginia, and just saw a note come down a little while ago that West Virginia is apparently parting ways with associate head coach Larry Harrison. And the reason why that's notable is he's been on that staff for the last 16 years, including 13 as their associate head coach.
Not only that, he was with Huggins, I think, prior to that.
And he was with Huggins before that. 24 seasons overall with Bob Huggins, going back to Cincinnati, where he spent 8 seasons with him. And then, as I mentioned, the last 13 as associate head coach and 16 with the Mountaineers. So don't know what that's about. Just saw a few puzzled reactions from Mountaineers fans, but it's of interest, especially when you're 0-4 in the conference and you're at the back of the standings and, and clearly things aren't right. So that's an interesting move, interesting timing for somebody who's been, a part of it for so long. So I'm interested in our West Virginia fans kind of letting us know what exactly is going on there. Anything on that?
It reminds me of when Steve Smith let go of Mitch Thompson, in the middle of the year, baseball-wise. Now Mitch is back as the head coach at Baylor, but it was just kind of in the middle of the year. And sometimes either things happen off the court or it just gets to a point of, even though somebody's been there a long time, the relationship has to change. So
I got something to say. And Paul, I agree with you that this is weird. It's not because they just happened to lose to Baylor last night and they're 0-4. When you've been with somebody that long and 16 or whatever amount of years with him at that school that he's at now, this seems to be other than just the fact that they're 0-4. Maybe there was some sort of a disagreement or something else. And that's what West Virginia fans are saying. Hey, this is strange. And I know I'm not breaking news with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's, this is off the radar. And, that wouldn't be something we typically would lead with. That might be, huge news in Morgantown right now. But that is a bit off the radar, and yet I know that we got a lot of Morgantown folks that are West Virginia fans that listen. And so, they've started off 0-4, lost 4 straight in Big 12 play, and lose to Baylor last night. They had big Jalen Bridges return and got to boo him and curse him and all that, and he got the last laugh. And, then today they, part ways with or Bob Huggins part ways with a guy he's been with forever and ever, nearly 2 decades at this point, or I guess, about 2 decades. And so that's strange and also notable there. So, I just wanted to make mention of that. Garrett, do you have that graphic? I thought this was pretty interesting. These are the starting quarterbacks. Fox College Football obviously put this together for the NFL playoff teams this weekend. And, there's not a lot of craziness, I guess, when you initially look at this. And I'm not trying to make this a conference versus conference thing, but who has Skylar Thompson and Geno Smith, and Brock Purdy, all from the Big 12 as starting quarterbacks for NFL playoff teams? You can also throw Hurts in there, obviously, having played at or closed his career at OU. He counts for, both or the SEC, I would think, and the Big 12. And then Patrick Mahomes, obviously, as well. So of those playoff teams, 5 quarterbacks from the Big 12. Hurts and Mahomes, no surprise, but Brock Purdy, Skylar Thompson, Geno's played great, so give him a lot of credit, and Seahawks had to get in there at the end, but I don't know. I was like, wow, there's 5 guys. That's kind of interesting.
You know where I first saw the 5 Big 12 quarterbacks? Cyclone Larry, who was a great follow. He hates Kansas State. He's a huge Iowa State. He's funny as hell. I don't know who he is. I've tried to get him on the show. He hasn't responded.
That could kill the legend, though, if you do that.
Yeah, no, it would. It's kind of like faux Pelini. So he had the 5 quarterbacks with the logos, and then he had, of course, Skylar Thompson with his tongue sticking out because he hates Kansas State. But that's nuts.
Yeah, and I didn't go and add up to compare there's 3 Big Tens or there. I didn't do all that because it wasn't really about that. I was just surprised looking at it from the Big 12. I was like, oh, Brock Purdy, there's a Big 12. Geno's, oh, okay. Skylar, what? Wait a second. And then get into Hurts and Mahomes. So 5 of the 14 playoff teams. That's getting weird to
I see
get used
2
to.
from the Big Ten, Michigan and Penn State. There's the 5.
Kirk Cousins as well.
Yeah.
So there'd be 3. Or no, you said Penn State.
No, I'm sorry,
Michigan State. Yeah, so 2 from the Big Ten.
So you have Wyoming, which is non-Power 5. Utah, Pac-12, right? That's 1.
That would be the only one.
SEC has LSU.
DAC is 2.
DAC is 2.
That's it.
And, of course, Jalen Hurts played at Alabama. ACC has Pac-12 has Justin Herbert too,
and
right?
Utah.
Yeah, and Utah. So there's 2 of those. So no one's got like
ACC's got 2.
Yeah.
So everybody,
don't start defending the ACC.
A lot of them got 2, but the Big 12's got 5. So that was wild. And you wouldn't have predicted a couple of those, to be sure, guiding their teams. Obviously, Miami, you would think it would have been. Tua and San Francisco obviously did not start Brock Purdy at the beginning of the year, but injuries led to him now being like one of the big names in the NFL playoffs.
Great story. It's a Max Duggan type story.
And just on the surface, it's cool to see a lot of the names that we've grown to love in college football over the years, and that's certainly a star-studded lineup right there. Of just like you talk about impactful guys. I mean, that's littered across that lineup right there. Even some of the the smaller school guys at one point in time, like a Josh Allen. So that's cool. I just thought that was of note and pretty awesome to see that. By the way, speaking of the NFL playoffs, the determination is still to be made because we have to see who wins this weekend. But, there's all this talk about, like, where the game would be played if the Bills get into the AFC Championship and, like, how that would work around. Well, if they end up facing the Chiefs, it has been announced that the Bills and Chiefs AFC Championship game will take place in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So the ATL will be the host site for any potential Chiefs-Bills AFC title game, Atlanta's Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So we do know that as far as what could unfold next. Meanwhile, sticking with the NFL, because this is off the radar, and I do sprinkle in college football, and I've got some college football stuff. I just don't know if I'm going to use it today or not on TV ratings. But you see Derek Carr's farewell letter to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yep.
Longtime quarterback there with the silver and black. He put out like a 2-page note basically saying his goodbye, his swan song to the Las Vegas Raiders organization. And just kind of paraphrasing, he said, "Raider Nation, it breaks my heart. I didn't get an opportunity to say goodbye in person. We certainly have been on a roller coaster in our 9 years together. It's especially hard to say goodbye because I can honestly say that I gave you everything I had every single day, every single season, and in the off season. It certainly wasn't perfect, but I hope that I was able to leave you with more than a few great memories as Raiders fans." And he gushed about, being a part of the team and the Raiders, but he said at the end, "I once said that if I'm not a Raider, I would rather be at home, and I meant that, but I never envisioned it ending this way. That fire burning inside of me to win a championship still rages, a fire no man can extinguish, only God. So I look forward to a new city and new team who, no matter the circumstance, will get everything I have."
That's enough. That's enough.
I'll take him in Washington.
My God. I like Derek Carr, and I hate the way it ended for him, but this sounds like J.J. Watt retiring.
Yeah, well, it's got to be gut-wrenching to leave the only franchise you've known, especially after they went out and traded for your...
People do it all the time.
Yeah, but they went out and traded for this best friend, and he thought it was going to... Everything's going to be different, and it was just the same that it had been. I don't really put the Raiders' offensive demise as much at the feet of Derek Carr as I do at the feet of Josh McDaniels. But look, Washington, New Orleans, maybe to a lesser extent, depending on if they can upgrade from Ryan Tannehill or not, Tennessee, those teams really make sense. What happens with Carolina, if they can't, the way they're slotted in the draft, they might wind up,
who's going to trade with Chicago to pick a quarterback at number 1?
Yeah, so all
that's
those
team that's out
dominoes could fall, but yeah, there are some interesting spots for Derek Carr to wind up. I'm sure that the Seahawks are going to try to re-sign Geno Smith, but do you have to make an assessment that a guy like Derek Carr is out there, and do you just thank Geno Smith for having a career year and let him walk?
Washington?
Yeah, Washington would be
Houston.
Yeah.
Of course, they get their quarterback in the draft.
Yeah, they're not going to go get him.
I don't know if they want to go back down that family tree either.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Well, I was going to say Denver. They could sure use a quarterback because the one they had was trash this year.
They're married to him for a couple years.
That trash is getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah,
so
not Arizona because Murray, but
Yeah, and Russ is not trash, to be clear, but the play this year was garbage.
Well, I tell you what, his reputation though as a teammate has just been.
But what is like the New York Post reporting stuff versus like what's actually reality?
Softy, we can kind of rely on him, and he kind of felt like there was a lot of drama in Seattle. But then
who is he a fan of? Who is he a fan of?
The Washington Commanders.
The Seattle Seahawks. Where's his radio show? In Seattle. Yeah. Who do they hate more than anybody right now? They hate Russell Wilson. But yeah, no, that's been a disaster. Denver, no, they're tied up with him. But yeah, teams like Washington, I could definitely see kicking the tires on a Derek Carr. Texans and people at the top of the draft to think definitely they're not getting a car. They're not getting a car. They are going the draft route, no doubt about it. I'll save this college football ratings tweet that I had that's got a good listing of some of the games from this year because we can officially put a bow on that after Monday night. But I might also dip back into this next Tuesday, we'll at least mention it here, that the 2022 NFL regular season ratings, 185 million plus people watched, or 85 million eyes overall were on the 2022 regular season. The average viewer per NFL game was 16.7 million. So,
which is higher than all but 2 or 3 college football games?
And this is just the average per game. 88 of the top 100 shows on TV in 2022 were NFL football games. 88 of the top 100, and the Cowboys had 3 of the top 5, 42.1 million, the highest rated game of the year. Giants and Cowboys in Week 12. They had the 3rd highest rated game, 29.2 million for Packers and Cowboys in Week 10, and the 4 of the top 5. The 4th highest rated, Philly-Dallas in Week 16 got 27.8.
Huge game.
And Cowboys-Vikings Week 11, 27.7.
Was that Thanksgiving?
That was Week 11.
Okay.
No. Cowboys, Thanksgiving was
an AFC team.
So they had 42 plus, 29 plus, 27 plus, and 27 plus. Those 4 Cowboys broadcasts. That's pretty incredible.
No matter what, I grew up hating them.
The Giants. They put the Giants on.
The only game that wasn't Cowboys related in the top 5 is the 2nd highest rated game. Would you have any guess on that?
Buffalo against Kansas City.
Buffalo's in there.
Jets.
Buffalo versus Detroit. 31.9 million
was that
viewers.
A Thanksgiving Day game?
Would it have been? I don't know.
That was the one where Buffalo had a
think
fly
about
in.
that, and think about this. Buffalo's New York, of course, but Buffalo, Kansas City would be 2, for the most part, not your Detroit, New York, Chicago, L.A., and that
was a Thanksgiving game. That makes sense. Yeah. So that's part of why. But yeah, that would not have been a game you probably would have guessed was Bills-Lions, even though both have turned around to have fun years. But there you go. There's a few things off the radar. I'll get the college football ratings next time.
All right. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate that so much. And when we come back, Robert Allen, sideline reporter for Oklahoma State earlier today, Barry Trammell, Oklahoman, on thoughts of many things, Oklahoma State and then also OU and the Big 12 in general. Now from Robert Allen's perspective, I texted him earlier today, hey, can you come on today? He goes, my day just got busier. Derek Mason stepping away, and we'll ask him about Spencer Sanders and more. And this is 365 Sports. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco. 48-foot walk-in humidor loaded up with great cigars. My oldest brother, Robert, smokes cigars a lot. He does. I call him almost every night when I'm on my way home from here to check in on him and just say hi. He's an amazing, amazing brother in person. He's normally on his back porch smoking an EP Carrillo. That's his favorite cigar now. It used to be Rocky Patel. It's been something else as well. But I always call him, and he always FaceTimes me. And he wants to, hey, light up a cigar. I'm in the car. I'm not going to do that in my car. But he loves cigars. A family, my dad started smoking cigars in the back porch back in the day, and then my brothers did, and then I did, and I enjoy it. When I'm playing a round of golf, smoking a couple of different cigars, and I get mine at Don Humidor and Coffee Beans. Carol, Ashley, and Cheyenne know the business, and CBD products, including Vita Dreams, which will help you sleep better. I promise you that. It really will calm you down where you fall asleep and you're not tossing and turning with all the things that are on your mind. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Thank you all who visit and spend time with us every day here on 365 Sports. We appreciate you always, and so do we appreciate our great guests, including Robert Allen, Oklahoma State sideline reporter, GoPokes.com, joins us on 365 Sports. You know, I guess the best way, Robert, for me to ask it is just bluntly, what the hell's going on in Stillwater with some of this attrition, or your thoughts on what's happening?
Oh, I mean, I don't think it's systemic. I know it may look like it. I guess it's wide receiver, but you know, I take it case by case, and really the one that kind of was a kick in the gut for me, because in my role at on the sidelines and being in the locker room, and Mike gives Dave Hunziker and John Holcomb and I think probably better access than probably any of the other guys radio crews get. I mean, we can go to any practice. We can pretty much do whatever we want. We're on the, we have the computer app where we get all the game tape and opponents tape, and I mean, we're pretty much in. So you get to know the kids. And John Paul Richardson, he'd just been elected a captain at the bowl game. A sophomore, that hadn't happened, here. So that was a kick in the gut. And I got to know Bucky and his wife, Tracy, and now he's going to TCU. And the reason, and I heard this from John Paul and I heard it from Bucky when I talked to them, was, John Paul had some goals that he didn't think he was going to be able to reach here because Brennan Presley is in front of him on the depth chart. Now, a lot of situations, a lot of formations are both on the field, but Brennan is the number one slot guy. And so, I mean, I get it. I see it a lot of different places. Bryson Green's dad was upset that they recruited Dejon Stribling from Washington State. He's an ex-receiver, plays the same position Bryson does. Since then, they've added another ex-receiver, Leon Johnson III, out of the portal. So I just think it's the day and age we live in college football with the portal. And I've talked to Coach Gundy a couple of times, like we talked yesterday, and he's excited. They've got another big visit weekend. They've got 5-6 kids coming in, 3 high school, 3 or 4 portal guys. And, they feel like they're getting a lot of good guys out of the portal. And, I never thought I'd be talking about this, but there's now rankings on some of the websites on portal classes. How's your portal class ranked?
Yep.
Geez. And Oklahoma State's been just about everywhere I've seen. They've been in the top 5. Now, I think they probably are in the top 10 as well on losses. You lose your leading tackler, Mason Cobb. He's going to USC. I think there was some tampering with Texas A&M. He goes and visits there and finds it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. So he ends up at USC, and then you lose your quarterback. But Spencer was a different situation. I mean, he'd started for 4 years, close to his degree, and he told Coach Gundy, he goes, I kind of want to see what else is out there. And I think, Mike kind of got that, and I think, Oklahoma State was kind of ready to move on. They've got some young quarterbacks in the room and probably a year away. So if Spencer had stayed, that would have worked. But he chose to go in the portal, not start bowl practices. This was after they thought he was going to practice and play in the bowl, because I think Coach Gundy had said, hey, look, finish this the right way. I got no problem with you leaving, but practice, play in the bowl game, and then clean break, and you can go find whatever it is out there you think you may find. Well, then he doesn't show up for bowl practice, puts his name in the portal, and tells them, I think I'm just going to move on. Then comes back and wants to come back 9 practices into the bowl practice, or into the bowl prep. And at that point, they were ready to move on. Now we're going to get Alan Bowman, and I'm kind of looking forward to that, because the last 2 times I saw Alan Bowman in Stillwater, he threw for 397 and 384. So hopefully he can keep up his average at Boone Pickens Stadium, because it's pretty damn good.
So, Robert, I guess, the outside world thinks of, like you said, as systemic, or as Mike Gundy losing his grip, and the way that the season ended was just, like a waterfall of injuries and things that didn't go their way. But this is just adjusting to the new world. Do you think Mike Gundy is a coach who wants to live in this new world for very long, or that he will see how he feels about it for a few years and then reassess and might get on the boat and go fishing?
Well, I think he does now. I mean, he predicted the portal would not be as devastating. He didn't think the portal would take the hold that it's taken. And he's a guy that loves high school football. He loved his experience. He loves Oklahoma high school football. He's just watched two of his sons, Gunner first, and now Gage finished up this year with a state championship at Stillwater High School as the quarterback. And he likes to recruit high school kids. And I think he underestimated how strong the portal would be. Doug Meacham at TCU told me this last summer. He goes, we're going to recruit portal guys. Probably 60% of our recruiting will be portal. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah. And he had a great explanation. Portal kids come in, they burn that 1 year freebie. They're locked in. You can coach them hard. High school kids, they've got that free transfer in the portal, and you've got to worry about how they're feeling, whether they're homesick, whether they feel like their coach has been nice to them or not. I mean, it's just a dip. Plus the portal kids have a little bit of experience at the Division I level. High school kids don't. And we're seeing this pretty much across the board. Well, I think Mike Gundy didn't feel that way. But now, he realizes, it's a portal world. His staff has been locked into that even before he was. So that's what's helped Oklahoma State kind of recover in the portal. Their recruiting staff has been very locked into it, and that's when you find a 6'5", 207-pound Division III All-American from George Fox University. Bonus points if you can tell me where that's located.
In the United States.
That guy's he's 6'5", 207, played baseball and football at George Fox. And the Chargers scout was the one that said, you can stay here and we'll find you because we know where you are. But if you want to maximize, you may want to go in the portal. So he goes to the portal. Oklahoma State locked in on him. He's on campus now, and I haven't seen him in person, but I've had Dave Hunziker has. Dave goes, this may be another Jalen Warren. This guy looks the part. So again, I mean, it's taken me a while to come around, but I'm starting to think, hey, this portal thing might be kind of fun. I mean, you get some do-overs and guys that haven't been as productive, they go in the portal because they're looking for something different, and you get to go another chance to go spin the wheel and see if you can find something better. So, as far as the way the season went down the stretch, I don't think anybody around here, from Mike Gundy to players, coaches, some fans, I think were disbelieving, but this was a meteoric year for injuries. I mean, you lost, Spencer missed several games, and some games he didn't practice all week before playing. You lost a bunch of receivers. You lost a bunch of running backs. The kid that's going to Baylor now, Dominic Richardson, missed 2 games down the stretch with concussion issues. I mean, it was just unbelievable what went on from the injury department. Trace Ford, who's going to OU now, he's had 2 ACLs, but this year he cracked his patella, which is your kneecap. I mean, Tyler Lacey went down with a broken bone in his ankle at Kansas. I mean, I've never seen it like this. And the defense really kind of, other than the first quarter of the OU game, after the Kansas State debacles, they played well enough the last 4 games, including the bowl game. Considering all the 3 and outs that OSU had in that bowl game, they did a pretty good job against Wisconsin, keeping OSU in the game. But, this was on offense especially. This was a tough way to finish the season. So, looking forward to getting everybody healthy and the guys that have come in out of the portal and see what it looks like in spring.
Robert, you mentioned the defense there. Obviously, another story emerging just today was Derek Mason announcing that he was going to be taking a quote-unquote sabbatical from coaching. Where did that fall on your radar? Was that out of nowhere? Was that expected? Was that mutual? Kind of how do you break that down?
No, knew about it 2 weeks ago, and that's one of those things when when you're in the position that we're in. You find out about some things that you can't. And really, this came quicker than what they wanted. I think Twitter, some of it got out on Twitter, and they finally decided just for Derek to announce it because I think they were trying to, keep it under wraps until after the portal closed. I don't think they're going to lose anything out of it because I think Mike Gundy's goal will be to keep the rest of the staff, defensive staff, and bring in somebody or elevate somebody. I think Joe Bob Clemens he's the guy that coordinated the defense in the Fiesta Bowl last year after Jim Knowles left, and a lot of people thought he would get it. And Mike instead moved him from defensive line to linebacker coach to give him a little more experience on the back end, brought in Derek Mason, which I think was a good role. I think it worked out well, and Derek was looking – he may have done this after Auburn last year if OSU had an offer. Because I think he's been thinking for a while about taking some time off. His daughters are getting out of college and starting their lives. And I think he wants to take stock with his family. And I'll be real honest. I think he'll resurface. But I think Derek Mason will resurface in the NFL. He's coached in the NFL before with Minnesota. You see David Shaw interviewing for some of these jobs, and he's friends with David. The Arizona thing is wide open. He's from Phoenix, talking about Derek. So if somebody wanted to pay him to coach corners or safeties in Arizona, I think he would be real receptive to that. I think we're looking at him eventually going back to the NFL.
One more question for you, Robert, because you're so inside there. I just want you to kind of set the record straight. Just me being an outside observer and following along with Oklahoma State news and notes. There's a lot of criticism for Casey Dunn, the offensive coordinator, and you mentioned like all of the injuries and all that they were dealing with. How much of their offensive woes was the injury part of it? How much stock do you put into, any scuttlebutt about Casey Dunn and the job that he did or did not do well?
Well, I would say this. Just look at the way the season went. The first 7 games, you're 6-1. You're still ranked in the top 10. They beat Texas here for homecoming. And I've said this before. I think I've said it with you guys. I've never seen a team empty the tank like they did that day against Texas. I mean, you had Jason Taylor II, who's going to the NFL and should, with his six interceptions, and he was named an All-American this year. On the second interception, he hyperextended his knee. And we thought it was worse. We thought he'd be out a while. Turns out he tried to play the next week against Kansas State. Didn't last long, but he never missed a game. So this team, that really, the Texas game was the end of the line because Spencer had got hurt against Tech. He had weathered the TCU and Texas games, but against Texas, he got banged up again. Your receivers, you'd lost a couple of those guys. The offensive line wasn't very good to begin with, and they were starting to get some injuries. Dominic was nicked up. It was a constant cycle from that point on. And we meet with the coordinators every week, and we'd go in and sit with Casey. And okay, our first questions always were, okay, what's Spencer's status? Okay, who do you have at running back? Who's the receivers this week? And it was every week I was sitting there thinking to myself, damn, I don't want this dude's job. This sucks. Your quarterback either isn't ready to go and you're playing a freshman, or if he is ready, he hadn't practiced all week. And then you've got guys out at every other position. I just think, it wasn't fair. Now, I do know this. Oklahoma State's going to look different next year. Mike Gundy watched what went on, especially in the run game down the stretch. This team couldn't run the football. And especially when Spencer was hurt, now you take the quarterback run, because Spencer's ability to run kind of saved this team because it struggled to run the football. And it really struggled from the beginning of the year. They smoked and mirrored the first half of the season. But second half, you just really couldn't run hardly at all. When you can't run the football at Oklahoma State, you're not going to throw it all that well either. So they're going to look a lot different next year. There's going to be some under center package for OSU. They're going to go mainly from zone scheme more to gap scheme. I'd be interested in what the stance is going to be at Baylor, because one of the rule changes this year, and I know Baylor ran the ball pretty good, but not as good as they'd like, that not being able to cut the linebackers at the second level, that's a basic zone scheme, is to cut that backside backer. Otherwise, he's going to scrape over and make a lot of plays on zone, inside and outside. And Oklahoma State was really struggling. That linebacker made a ton of plays against them. So I think, to help the offensive line get some angles, you're going to see a lot more gap scheme with OSU next year. So all that said, it's probably okay that you cut bait with Spencer Sanders, because it's going to look a lot different next year. The offense is going to be, it's going to look more like it did when Mike Gundy coordinated. And so Casey Dunn is going to take some direction next year, and it's probably easier to direct a guy that's been with you than it is to bring in somebody new and say, hey, look, I know you think it's going to be fun to be the OC, but basically I'm telling you what to do here. So that's going to be part of the equation next year, and it probably works better that way. But I don't blame Casey Dunn. Casey Dunn was like the kid, with the dike, and he's, putting his finger in the holes, and there's more holes. There were more. It was Swiss cheese down the stretch on this offense.
Robert, last question, and we have a couple of minutes here. Spencer Sanders, I know you said that Gundy said go look for something if you could find something better. Is that NIL better?
Well, I don't know. The word I heard was he was making $400,000 here, $400,000 in NIL. He had just done a T-shirt deal with Eskimo Joe's, and you guys know Eskimo Joe's. I felt bad for Stan Clark, the head of Joe's over there, because it was a really good looking T-shirt, and I'm sure there's a lot of them sitting in the warehouse there. But I don't know on NIL as much as I don't think the money is just all that for Spencer. I think it was a rough year this year with injuries, including his. He's been the starter here 4 years, and I think. The thing I heard was he told Mike, he just said, look, Coach, I got 1 year left. I'd kind of like to see something different. And he got it. I think the disconnect came when Spencer didn't play in the bowl game. And he did try and come back and do that, but 9 practices in, that's probably not going to work. At that point, Garrett Rangel was going to start the bowl game, period. He'd been the starting quarterback for the 9 practices in prep. So, call it miscommunication, whatever. But, I wish Spencer well. I mean, he was a great player here. I don't know what he's going to do. I think Smokey, I think you asked me, and I said, I don't pay that much attention to the guys that leave. I'm trying to figure out who's coming in.
Right.
So, well, you've been busy as hell then, haven't you? Yeah.
I've been damn busy. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you right up till the time you guys called, I'm sitting here on my computer looking at the guys that are visiting this weekend, trying to figure out which ones they've got a really good chance to get, because I do a little advance work and try and have some stuff in the can ready to go when these guys hit Twitter and say, hey, I'm a Cowboy. That's my cue to kick in something right there in response. So, it's been a busy time, but I'm starting to like the portal a little bit. I wasn't a big fan, but now I'm starting to think, this is it's kind of interesting. And I'm interested in seeing how Alan Bowman will work here. Because at one time, Cliff Kingsbury thought he was a cat's meow. So, and like I said, I've seen him carve up Oklahoma State twice in Stillwater.
Robert, as always, thank you, man. Appreciate your insight. GoPokes.com. Robert Allen, Oklahoma State sideline reporter, with us on 365 Sports. We had a couple of different views and a couple of different eyeballs on Derek Mason leaving, the attrition at Oklahoma State, and as both of them mentioned, and we've mentioned, they've also gained about 2/3 of those numbers they've lost back, and there may be another player or two that leave before it's said and done. Garrett, there's a new part of the Baylor support staff. You guys hear this? I had more people text me in the last, well, it's not lately, but about 2 weeks ago or so, that they saw Ed Orgeron at a Walmart in Waco. And, of course, at the time, Aranda had not yet announced his defensive coordinator. That wasn't going to be him. But perhaps they were possibly in town, I don't know, with him. But that's Parker, who's now a part of the Baylor staff as a part of the analyst crew that's going to be a part of Baylor football.
You know, just based on what I know of Ed Orgeron, seeing him in a random Walmart in a city you wouldn't expect him actually isn't that surprising. You know, outside of the Baylor connection, like if you told me, like, hey, I saw Ed Orgeron at a Walmart in Redondo Beach, I'd be like, well, I guess he's on vacation. And I mean, it wouldn't, but I mean,
we saw pictures of him visiting numerous campuses throughout the football season.
But yeah, he does seem to me like a guy who would go into a town and, you know, check out a Walmart real quick. But I say that because I think he's hilarious. But I love that. It's great.
He's
bring in the progeny,
a defensive assistant. And Colin D'Angelo, who's part of the staff, we just got better back at it with my brother, also with Parker Orgeron at his profile picture. When we come back, a couple of other notes to get to when it comes to college football. The reaction of, Clemson wasn't done with their offensive staff. We'll have that and more. Paul's top 5 around the corner, and this is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr has the new 2023 truck or SUV you want in stock today. The versatile GMC Terrain is waiting for you. Qualified buyers get 3.9% financing and a $750 loyalty rebate for eligible GMC owners. Qualified buyers get 2.9% financing on most new 2023 GMC Sierra 1500s in stock, or 3.9% on all 2023 Buick Envision, Encore, and Enclave SUVs in stock. Call now, get here now, or log on to get all the details and to drive home your new GMC or Buick today.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marcos Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marcos. Pizza lovers get it.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Wet blanket. Others, Oklahoma State fans, appreciate your feedback on what we're able to bring today to give you some angles and views. And not sure if you got everything you needed, but it was nice to hear a couple of different opinions and views from Barry Trammell and also from Robert Allen on Oklahoma State. Now, and if you just now joined us, a couple of the stories. The biggest story today initially might have been, Derek Mason leaving, taking a step away as a defensive coordinator at Oklahoma State. And then the mother lode of Garrett Riley leaving TCU for Clemson after they had just fired their offensive coordinator, Streeter. And, Paul, they're not done.
No, they've brought back Jeff Scott. Max Olson mentioned, that's who he thought maybe would be the offensive coordinator. Jeff Scott is going to, and he's a Clemson dude through and through. And he was the offensive coordinator before he went to USF. And then it was he and Tony Elliott, and then he went, and Tony Elliott was the offensive coordinator. Is going to serve as an analyst and recruiting role at Clemson as well. So, man, just a boon all the way around for Clemson today offensively. He gets back a guy he's comfortable with that can, be an analyst and serve that, and then a guy who's going to be a head coach in a couple of years in Garrett Riley to inject some life back into that offense that has a lot of talent. Cade Klubnik, Will Shipley, wide receivers. The offensive line is starting to pick back up. It was down a little bit, but I think that started to tick up as now if you look around the ACC, and part of this might have been that. It's like you look around the conference and the ACC had fallen so far behind Clemson. Now they're starting to pick back up a little bit. A very good move. Good moves all the way around for Dabo Swinney today.
Yeah, I think that you just wanted to see, at the very least, maybe Jeff Scott come back if you're a Clemson fan. I don't know. It probably depends on who you ask exactly. But if you said that he was probably coming back in light of the Streeter news, I think you'd probably have gotten some good response to that. But to get him as a double whammy along with Garrett Riley and to know that Garrett Riley's actually going to be the OC, but you still got him back, it's a good little, twofer on a Thursday for Dabo Swinney. So now that that's all sorted out, you can let the hype and what have you and other moves that need to be made begin. But I think that Clemson and Dabo certainly had themselves a big day, and a lot of headlines coming out of this for them. And now they'll have a little bit of momentum to play with. But it's just funny to me. The last couple of years, they were viewed as losing their grip or Dabo's losing or whatever, and they're still winning double-digit games. It's just give me an 8-win season before I start to panic or something. But I get it when the standard is so high like it is. It's so select few places, and that is certainly one of those places at this moment. That it's anything less than perfection or a 1 or 2 loss seasons. The sky is falling, but I think Dabo, swung back, as I said earlier, with a big homer to, kind of alleviate some of that stress that, maybe people were feeling about the coaching staff and just too much of the same thing and too many of the same ideas and all of that was discussed. So, big move.
You can almost, sometimes, no matter how successful, and remember, Clemson had not won a national title since 1980, I think it was, 80 or 81, when they beat Nebraska in an Orange Bowl. And then all of a sudden they start playing for them and winning them. And next thing you know, here's a couple years later, okay, what's wrong with Clemson? Because we are in an instant gratification type era. Maybe we always have been. And that's a hell of a move today. And that'll calm the waters a little bit. I'll kind of get back with that guy a friend of ours that watches the show, who's a huge Dabo guy, helps him, in fact, advises him on some things about the hiring of what he did today. Go ahead.
Yeah, and look, like I said before, I thought that, they're just kind of spinning their wheels, Clemson was, but it doesn't appear that way anymore. There's successful businesses. I'll use the example of Domino's. Remember Domino's a few years ago just came out and said, like, listen, we know that for the last decade or so, our pizza's been total crap. Like, we get it. We got too full of ourselves. We cheaped out on some things. Well, we're admitting it was bad. We're changing the ingredients. And then people who, like me, I hadn't had Domino's pizza in forever because I thought, well, it kind of got crappy over the last decade. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this. And all of a sudden it works, and now nobody thinks of Domino's in that way anymore because you had to look inward, and good on Dabo for doing a little Domino's pizza on the Clemson program right now.
Yeah, and they're not the only team involved, obviously. Yeah. TCU loses their offensive coordinator, but I don't think that, when you have Sonny Dykes as your head coach that you're feeling like the sky is falling offensively. So, that's the saving grace if you're TCU. It's been a hell of a week. Max Duggan did win the Earl Campbell Award last night, so that was nice after what was a rough couple of days for him following Monday. But then, to turn right around and the guy who helped, steer the ship offensively for the Frogs is leaving. But Sonny Dykes had a hand in that too. If it'd be one thing if it was like Gillespie leaving. I'd be like, well, how are they going to – is he going to strike gold twice? Is there another, badass defensive coordinator out there that he's going to go be able to scoop up and just replace Gillespie with? But, replacing Riley will be a much easier workaround for Sonny Dykes than had it been on the other side of the football. But it's a loss, though. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a loss given the way that they played on offense this year and, the way that Duggan stepped in so admirably. Losing Duggan, losing Riley, losing Travius Hodges-Tomlinson. Like, I know they've already hit up the portal and all of that, but, the way that they were able to get by, the skin of their teeth in a lot of games this year, as we saw with Baylor, for example, and as we saw with, various teams, you're 5-1 or you're 4-2 in one-score games or whatever, and the next year you very well could be 1-5 or 2-4, and that just swings things wildly. So TCU, this is going to be a really, really interesting offseason.
You know what? Clemson's had 12 consecutive years of 10 or more wins.
Oh, I'm well aware.
Yeah, they've been pretty good.
Did I say that loud enough?
I'm well aware. I know.
Dabo Swinney took over in 2008. I think he was an interim and lost a bowl game to Nebraska back when that was possible. But he's had 12 consecutive years of 10 wins or more. He's won a couple of national titles, played in yet, I think, another one. And this was a program that had success but had not won a national title. It was 81 season. And we're acting like time is passing him by.
No, I mean, look, sometimes you can just get kind of too, again, in the forest, right? You can't see the forest or the trees or whatever. And it kind of felt like the last couple of years he was in danger of really doing that because, remember how Texas or, was kind of rolling along at 05, right? And to 09. Then all of a sudden, everybody around you start looking like, oh, my God, Baylor's good. Oh, did A&M get better all of a sudden? Oklahoma was always there. Oh, Tech had a little kick up under Mike Leach. Well, if you're good for a long enough time, then everybody starts focusing on you. So finally, your rivals start looking around and going, okay, we got to go at Clemson. And if you're not aware of that, sometimes you're like, well, we're fine. Then you look around like, oh, no, they're coming back at you. Yeah. Clemson was in that early stages.
I don't know if they were teetering, but they needed to they needed a facelift, and they got one.
It was one of those things like, if you don't do anything about this, you're going to be that next, dynasty that falls, and then go, well, where did it all go wrong? Because you didn't look inwardly, and they clearly have right now.
I agree with you, but Marco's Pizza, by the way, pizza lovers get it.
Oh, well, I mean, Domino's isn't a sponsor, but look,
I was just reminded to make sure you all knew that Marco's Pizza lovers get it. Now,
Shorty's is a sponsor, too.
There was a story about, again, the assistant Larry Harrison at West Virginia. Hoops from the Hills has been asking about a question and talking about West Virginia. They love Bob Huggins. I know there's been some thoughts maybe things are passing him by. They don't play defense like they used to play defense, and they don't have the waves of athletes to suffocate you. And there's an issue there. They will foul you, they will play you, they'll send you to the free throw line. We saw 69 free throws last night. but they don't have that just absolutely, you're petrified, you're scared to death to play them because you know you better be, one, in shape, and two, you're going to get worn down. If you blink, you're down 10. So there's a good discussion from Hoops from the Hills about Bob Huggins and the Larry Harrison moving on after Craig mentioned that during Off the Radar. When we come back, Paul Catalina's Top 10 right here on 365 Sports.
Kick off the new year at the Start Something New sales event. Get up to $2,500 in total values and 1.9% for 72 months on the new 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited with second and third row seating options. The Start Something New sales event is happening now at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:45. Or is it 5:55? Either way, it's the Top 5.
Top 5 Kevin Warren accomplishments. Some of this will be good things, and some of this might be a little snarky. I'm just going to warn any Kevin Warren fans who are watching this, who I think is I'm just going to tell you, pretty brilliant businessman and handled things well, and I think the Bears have made a home run of a hire and someone who can take them to levels they haven't been to. Number 5, taking the Big Ten out of the 1980s. This was a conference overall that, while they had success, had a commissioner in Jim Delaney who was one of the, if not the most powerful person outside of Mike Slive when they were both commissioners at the same time in college sports. And unlike Mike Slive, Jim Delaney was, we're not changing a daggone thing. We're going to dig in. We don't want a playoff. We don't want this. I mean, he fought every kind of change to the college football postseason that you could. And Kevin Warren is a guy who stepped in and started taking the Big Ten out of that, because if you look over the SEC, there's a guy there was Mike Slive, and then there was Greg Sankey, who aren't really saying no to much innovation. You know, they're out there trying to, disrupt things and change things all. So he applied the SEC strategy to the Big Ten, and it's worked really, really well for him in the conference.
They used to be the government.
Yeah.
They were the government, and they weren't going to change. And they eventually did, and now they're all raking in millions and millions of dollars. And now whether or not they still play a style of football, for the most part, that is still somewhat old school.
Overrated.
And so,
TCU proved that. Sorry. TCU proved that.
They
We
did.
all those big, bad, physical linemen. They're not going to be able to keep up. This smash mouth football. A mouth got smashed in that semifinal game. It wasn't TCU's.
I thought the most surprising part was not that Michigan offense, although they scored some points, was that Michigan's defense is pretty damn athletic, and TCU made them look like they were slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's some element of truth to that. Don't get me wrong, but this whole 4 yards in a cloud of dust, that's just not. There's more ways to skin a cat than just old school smash mouth football. And even if you want to go that route, doesn't mean just because you got Big Ten on your helmet that's going to be a battle that you always win.
Some of the new coaching hires will either keep that style or bring in the new, like Luke Fickell or someone like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, supposed to Phil Longo going to Wisconsin.
Phil Longo,
yeah. They're upsetting the apple cart there. Number 4, helping expand the playoff. This was big on him. Now we'll get into how he helped expand it in a second, but he did do that, and he was an integral part of it. But to give him credit where credit is due, this does not happen without Kevin Warren making this happen. So he did help expand the playoff.
He did. Yeah.
Yes and no.
Well, like I said, we'll get to how he did expand the playoff in a second.
He didn't originally.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Let's hold off on that one until the finale, we'll call it. Number 3, the Big Ten TV deal. He sent two other conferences and probably a third in the ACC scrambling to make sure that they got their next one. One of them can't do anything about it in the ACC, really. One of them hasn't been able to do anything about it in the Pac-12, and one of them has in the Big 12. But the Big Ten TV deal will resonate for a long time as now maybe the new industry standard.
Yeah, I mean, that part of it was masterfully done. Obviously, he doesn't get that done to the degree that it was without the LA schools. That certainly helped boost it. But, for all the options that they had, and let's face it, them and the SEC are the only two that had the full buffet of options. Everybody else had half the table's worth. But, he had obviously a lot of interest, a massive audience, lots of old money, new money, what have you, lots of tradition, a lot of things to sell, and a lot of things that were worthwhile to TV companies. And to swing a programming deal with a bunch of different major networks, and to have the Big Ten take over the SEC slot on CBS, and to bring in the type of money they're going to be bringing in. When not every week's going to be Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State, Michigan State, or whoever. That's a job that I think ranks right at the top of all of his accomplishments. Was certainly the expansion / TV deal that ensued, and he deserves a lot of credit for how he handled that, and he did a tremendous job.
Number 2, stealing USC and UCLA from the Pac-12, which if I was doing this in sequence, then that would have had to come first. But this is what he accomplished, and did it in the dead of night. Watched Oklahoma and Texas go to the SEC, and then sat there and said, "All right, how do I do this in my league?" And stole the second biggest media market in the country, or first, depending on the year, away from the Pac-12.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was his idea or if he got a little phone call and said, hey, what would you think about? But regardless, like he had to pursue it or not pursue it, and he did and was part of the group that bye, Jack. Good job today, man. Appreciate you. He was a part of the group that, was able to make this happen. And so I think that was a giant move for them, obviously, and was so unexpected. That's the thing about it. It was just so surprising that, after Oklahoma and Texas, like, all right, well, surely we'll never have the type of secrecy and the surprise element. And it's like it took a year to get to exact same deal, basically, with USC and UCLA.
Yeah. Number 1, convincing the ACC and Pac-12 to vote with him while conspiring to ruin their lives. And the ACC doesn't really take as much of the brunt of this as the Pac-12 obviously does, because their biggest media market didn't get ripped out. I mean, they didn't go into Miami and do anything like that. But I do think, and I've always thought this, if the ACC and Pac-12's TV deals were similar, would he have not tried to go into and get a North Carolina and an FSU to like rip in there so he's got every corner of the country covered in that conference for their TV deal? I do wonder, and I will always wonder, but the Pac-12 in particular, ACC and Pac-12 voted against the playoff expansion. Big Ten voted, they all voted against it, so it would knock it down, and he made it look like it was them and not him, and then took USC and UCLA
from one of his partners.
And then turns around and is like, you know what? We need to expand this playoff now that we've got these LA schools in here. We can't be messing around with just 4 teams anymore.
Yeah, it's going back to what we were talking about. He poo-pooed expansion because of the alliance, and then as soon as he got what he wanted, alliance over, expansion on. Well done. I mean, masterfully done. Made Pac-12 look like the biggest dopes in the world. And, I know the Big 12 didn't look too smart the year prior either, but at least the Big 12 movements like tipped you off like, hey, you might want to pay attention to your schools. Yeah. And I guess the Pac just was like, we're in an alliance. We don't have to worry about that.
And gone.
And your alliance was not at all what it was made out to be. It was all just for Kevin Warren and the Big Ten's benefit. And, yeah, I mean, that was stunning on – a level, I don't know how much we'll see that anymore in our lives. The surprise level that came with the OU Texas and then the LA schools moves. But, yeah, I mean, that was masterfully done, like I said. That will definitely be his legacy, is just, bringing in the LA schools and that big TV deal more than probably anything else. But, yeah, very short tenure, really, in the grand scheme of things, but a very impactful tenure. That's for you could write a book on his 4 years as
absolutely
the head of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Jeremy Callahan on Kevin Warren's number 1, pulling off the turd in my pocket marketing miracle that got people to think that just because his conference at Ohio State, the whole conference was good.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair.
Absolutely fair.
That's very fair.
Now at least Michigan's, holding up their weight too, and obviously Penn State. But yeah, I mean that's absolutely true for a segment of that time. Yeah.
Can you imagine like sitting in front of like all the TV execs while he's making this deal, but like, hey, and you guys are going to have Michigan, Ohio State, and hey, guess what? NBC, you're going to be able to do like a Notre Dame game, and then we're going to have USC versus Michigan, and then CBS, and next week you're going to have Purdue and Northwestern, and then just kind of don't worry about that. Don't pay attention to that. Look at this. This is going to be UCLA and Wisconsin. That's going to be exciting, right, guys? Hey,
yeah.
You get Rutgers.
Yeah. You guys get Rutgers.
Wayne Gerbach wants you to do a top 5 for the replacements of Kevin Warren. That would be at some point.
That I'll have to do some research on. I've seen a couple people do some articles on it, but don't know all that much yet, but I will.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, he changed college football. He's one of those that we look back like 20 years from now and like wherever college football is or college sports really, and you look at where it is, he's going to be one of those probably top 10-ish most influential, if not top 5, depending on how it goes the next couple decades, influential figures to look back on. So made some history for the benefit of the Big Ten, for the worst of others, and ultimately for college sports. We'll see.
Sir Blah Blah, longest top 5 headline ever. That was there's a lot of words in there, letters, and also Paxton went 0-5, didn't even try on this one. We love it. It's fun. Thank you so much to all of our guests. Thanks to our incredible sponsors as we roll along early on this early part of January of 2023. Emery, Jacob, Jack, and Garrett, appreciate all of your time as well. Back at it tomorrow at 3. Don't forget tonight, 10:30, Sports Tonight on the CW channel. For Paul Catalina, for Craig Smoak, I'm David Smoak. Good night on 365 Sports.